Nick's looking pretty high and tight. Chris is looking a little shaggy.
I was told yesterday by my wife that the tousled hair was working for her. So when I got out of the shower, I finger brushed that bitch and let it air dry. And I was like, oh my God, my wings. I got my wings back. If I don't side part, I forget I get my little skate ramps on the side.
Genetically speaking, you are from the 70s, Chris.
Take that for data.
Constant Crusade podcast. Sometimes we just preamble and we think we're doing the thing, but we haven't done the thing yet. I'm EJ Olson. I am here with Nick Durheim.
We're all getting old.
We are. You're looking funky fresh today. You're looking like you're ready to go serve your country.
Haircut will do that. It's not that high.
Chris Gillyfor.
Oh, I hate that so much.
You look good.
You do look good. You look great.
Thanks, fellas.
What did I say?
Props to Lindsay, my amazing hairdresser.
Oh, no shit. Shout out, Linz. Come on.
Very good. Very
Line
good.
me up and everything. Yeah.
Oh man, the beard, the whole deal.
What can't she do?
Things poorly.
She can't cure my anxiety.
Though, has she really tried?
Fair. Also, I have a little bottle of anti-anxiety that would probably do the trick.
Maybe some microdoses are in your future, EJ.
Yeah, man.
Go on a vision quest.
One drug. Well, micro.
Okay, today, Constant Crusade podcast, we're doing an update to the definitive, the world's most unimpeachable list, the top 100 video games of all time, at least for us. This is episode 150, so we're going to revisit this. It's been a year, a little over a year, 18 months maybe, close to that. It will not be a 6-hour podcast, I fucking promise. Maybe I shouldn't make promises I can't keep. We're just going to slot in some new stuff, some stuff that was forgotten, some stuff we played this year, maybe some rearranging. This is not going to be a great standalone episode. This is like a companion podcast, episode 100. If you're a complete sicko, go listen to episode 100. It's really long, but we debate and we rank and we compile a list of 100 games. This will be a lot less in-depth. We will have a new list of 100, but for the full breadth of our opinions, you're going to want to go back and listen to that. This will not be a deep dive on 100 games. So, Chris, how are we doing this today?
Well, we tossed a couple of ideas around, and I think where we landed, which I agree with, for time's sake and also for, logic sense, we are going to do a round robin, and we are going to take turns suggesting games that we would like to add, as well as offering the game that we would like to remove in order for it to make the list. Priority, of course, will be given to games that we suggested that we're willing to cut. So, shout out Plock as it fades from the top 100 forever. If I offer a game and say I would like to add this game and I would like to volunteer Plock as the game that would be cut, we're not going to have any objections to that because I am the only sicko in this room and in most rooms that I am in. Every room I'm in except for the one where I'm with my family. People, nobody's going to argue that. But if I were to say, I want to add this game and I would like to replace Pokemon Crystal, which I suggested, first of all, I would never do that. Second of all, y'all might go, whoa, slow down there, partner. That game's really important to me too. And I think that still deserves a place on the list. And then we can get into a little back and forth about, what about this game? What about this game? What about this game? That way, as EJ put it, we are starting from love and from a place of positivity. And let me make an offering and let me see which of my babies I can kill to get some of these new ones in. Speaking from a big priority for me as we go through the list this time is rectifying the competitive nature that I instilled by making a joke, maybe in an ill-advised joke at the beginning about trying to quote unquote win the top 100. And then I wouldn't say it became a rat race, but there was a little bit of elbowing of like, we got to get my games up there. I want to prioritize games that we all love and look at some stuff that maybe we've all played and try and get that a little bit higher towards the list. A lot of the stuff that's on my scratch list is stuff that many of us have played. Some of them, all of us have played. So that's kind of my guiding ethos. Remind me, what was the over-under that you set last time? Was that 14 and a half?
Let's call it 14 and a half. That feels right. I think that's what it was.
I took the over. I think that y'all both took the under, but just so.
Just so. Some fun stats really quick. Chris, you talked about turning into a competition. I had 35 games. Nick had 33 games, and you had 32 games of our suggestions that ended up staying on the list. Nick, is there anything interesting about this spreadsheet that you want to talk about before we deep dive? And then we can have Chris. Maybe do we read the list? Do we do it in batches? I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I have plenty of stats. I don't know how interesting any of them are. I kind of wanted to know how many for each platform. Obviously, the biggest two platforms were Switch and PS4, followed by 360. I mean, a lot of these games are multi-platform, but I kind of went with what felt like the lead platform or the platform that I or whoever played it on. PC with 7, a lot of like singulars like Genesis and NES and 3DS all get like about 1. You said how many we got like on the list, the ones that we suggested, the ones that we had all. So I averaged the ranks of those as well. So the most populist suggester was me. Like I got mine the highest. My average rank for suggestions is 43, and EJ's average rank was 56. So it kind of means that most of my suggestions kind of floated up a little bit higher on average, and EJ's a little bit lower on average.
Oh yeah, I can see that on the spreadsheet right here. That's a lot of red there towards the bottom.
What was mine?
Your average was 51. You're just like right in the middle.
Right in the middle, dude.
It's the only time anyone's ever accused me of being a centrist.
Populist. You know, on average, everyone likes you about equally.
I will say, however, I do have 5 games in the top 10. So that's my little claim to fame is that
That floats it up. That floats it up.
Yeah, I had a few less and, yell at a few more. But again, I'm operating under a very different ethos this time.
Also, Metroid Prime Trilogy was like a weird compromise. That's both of you.
That's true.
Yeah, a little bit strange. I think I can't remember which one of us offered up Metroid Prime first, and then I came in with Prime 2 Echoes, and then we hybridized, combined, adapt, overcome. EJ has the most games that only he played with 8. Chris with 6, me with 3.
You have stats on here that says of the top 100, how many each of us played and how much each of us beat.
Correct.
Looking at these numbers, kind of makes sense. I've played the most of these games and I've beaten the fewest.
Right.
You and Chris are separated by only a single game, but he's beat more of them, which also tracks. Chris is a completionist and a sicko.
I am a total sicko. At me grinding Chocobo Racing all morning and Queen's Blood and all the Gold Saucer mini games. I can't
Instead
help
of
it.
beating the story.
I'm not the savior of Midgar and Gaia if I have not fully done all of the things. Otherwise, it's an incomplete. I can't help it. I can't help it.
People are dying while Chris is like getting hammered playing poker at a fucking dive bar. I have to do this before I save you.
They're all so good. That's the thing too. Like literally 3 of these mini games could be standalone games and I would pay full price for them and they would be fucking great. Like we were joking that
Just like Fort Condor, right?
oh, shut up. They shit out Chocobo Grand Prix and it was a disaster. And then clearly they were like, okay, well, we have to do better in Rebirth because we know we're going to the Gold Saucer. And it's literally Mario Kart with birds. And it's amazing. It is amazing. Queen's Blood, amazing. I would buy a standalone Queen's Blood. I want a deck of Queen's Blood cards in my office on my shelf. I'm off the rails. Yes, I'm sick.
Okay, we're not going to read anything from the top 100. This is a true sequel to episode 100 in every way. So without that context, you'll just have to pull up the spreadsheet, which will live at solo.to/console crusade. You'll find links to episode 100 and to a spreadsheet that has all of these games ranked. So I guess, Nick, if you don't have anything else for us, we're just going to start us off. And you know what? Why don't you go first this time?
Me?
You! I hope you're ready. I hope you got a list. I hope you got your spreadsheets up.
Got my spreadsheet up. My list is pretty dire. I do not have a lot to make amends with, make changes on, especially looking at my personal suggestions. Almost all of them I feel like are niche enough and deserving enough, with some minor exceptions that I don't know if I would really want to be offering them up on the chopping block just yet. And then also, I don't really think I've played anything or thought of anything in the past year and a half, year and change since we did the list initially that I'm like, oh, that's definitely a top 100 game. But I will just throw this out there to give Chris something to talk about right away. And I'll just say that Crosscode was something that we forgot about when we were doing our top 100. And both Chris and I loved that game and played it prior to the last recording as well. So we just did a big oopsie and goofed and forgot about it. But I think that definitely belongs on the list. And to be in keeping with killing our babies that we suggested, I'm totally fair with taking off Lumines. That's a game that I really loved back on the PSP. It was definitely it was launch title. It's an addicting sort of rhythm based ish block falling game. Very simple, but just really enjoyable for a handheld platform. But I played that game recently again. I was like, this is so slight as to not even be worth mentioning anymore. It was really cool at the time, but as far as games that quote unquote hold up, I don't think Lumines really lives in that category. I'm glad that I own it. I'm glad that I can play it if I ever want to, but it is not something that needs to live on our list because it no longer lives in my heart.
Oh, well said.
I wholeheartedly support this. That was one of the games that I was going to offer a big oversight on our part and just a delightful ass game.
Is this Metroidvania-esque?
Crosscode is an action RPG. It takes place inside of a fake MMO. It is pixel art, sort of akin to Super Nintendo style, maybe closer to PS1. And it is really charming, really great story, really nice combat, and the way that they add new abilities and increase the difficulty of the puzzles and the platforming challenges are really fun. Top-down perspective, so it is Link to the Past style, but it does have platforming where you're jumping from spot to spot, and keeping track of how high up you are is key to that. And there is a myriad of just ridiculous. The puzzle challenges in this game get pretty nasty with the timing. You're running around chasing these energy balls as they're bouncing around, sort of like mirror puzzles or moving block puzzles in basic 16-bit RPGs, but it just escalates extremely. And the combat's really nice. It's kind of hack and slash beat 'em up style with a ranged attack. I feel like a lot of games took a lot of inspiration from Hyper Light Drifter because I can't really think of many other games that did here you're doing up close and personal hack and slash, and then you have your ranged attack, and doing one boosts the other, so you're kind of juggling back and forth. But Crosscode definitely, it's just a great game. I would recommend it wholeheartedly.
Looking at picking up a fizzy this paycheck, I think I could get it for $35 at Walmart. It's just one of those do I really want to wait and see if I could get it cheaper, or do I just need to buy it kind of deals?
I see it for $30 on Amazon pretty regularly. Pretty available.
Crosscode slotting in for Lumines, huh?
Yes.
This list is already feeling, all right, we're refining it. This feels good. It's a little more intention here. I like it. I've never played Lumines, so I shouldn't have judged, but I judged,
Lumines, I think, is a perfectly cromulent addition to a top 100 list. It is a good spice. It's variety where we do not have a lot of that kind of off-kiltered rhythm puzzle dropping games. We have tons of action RPGs, but we are refining. Like you said, Crosscode is a better game. That's all I'll say,
We have Tetris and Minecraft, or Minesweeper rather, which is very different and better.
I was playing Minesweeper just the other week. What a great little busy game.
Nick, I think you're putting in things. Chris, why don't you give us your first game while that unfolds?
I will do that. I have I kind of have a question. So I have a handful of games that are basically 1-for-1 swaps with HD versions. So I want to ask y'all, do you think that we need to debate exchanging 1-for-1 Super Mario RPG for Mario RPG Remake? Do we need to debate 1-for-1 switching Metroid Prime for Metroid Prime? Well, that one has some logistics with Metroid Prime 2 attached, but in that situation, do we need to debate that? Is there going to be any feeling of...
It depends. This came up with the Star Fox remake, where I was the 3DS remake, even though it's on the 3DS, looks better and controls better than the 64 version, but I got shot down. So I think it just is case to case, but I don't think we need to spend a shit ton of time on it. So let's run through that.
Just throwing it out there, this came, like you said, EJ, with Star Fox and also with Link's Awakening, where I leaned towards the Game Boy original that was the first time I experienced it, so that's where the heart was. So I don't think Mario RPG really has enough additions to it to like reasonably justify it being replaced for the remake, because they add the post-game battles, which are cool, and obviously the remade soundtrack is nice, and like the visuals are pretty, and we can play it on a newer system again. But I mean, it's the same game. It's still the SNES game, pretty much 1-to-1.
Yeah, it's those extra things that I appreciated a lot, and also just the fact that it's now not trapped on old hardware or like a collectible device. This may go lower down the list. In fact, I think it is going to go lower down the list, but I guess we'll just talk about. Let's start here. I'd like to swap the original for the HD version, or for the current version.
I think there's something to be said about like your emotional attachment. Like obviously you love Super Mario RPG, but you know, revisiting that and what that did for you emotionally is obviously much more recent, but it's probably much stronger than like really any memory that is tied to a game you played 25 plus years ago, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. It's also the best version of the game. And not that this list is for anyone necessarily but us, but it's like, Nick, are you ever going to go back and play the one on Super Nintendo, or do you just, if you ever play it again, it's going to be on Switch, right?
Yeah, I mean, does that make my previous experience with the original lesser?
No.
Like, I don't think so.
Sure.
So
yeah, okay, so good. So that the information I'm getting is yes, we do need to engage on that as it comes up. At the moment, though, are there any objections? Are we wanting to keep the SNES version, or is this an acceptable substitution?
I have an objection. It's not a strong objection. I'm fine with it being swayed because this is the version that EJ played, and EJ is 1/3 of this podcast and deserves to have his feelings on the table as well. So I'm not going to like be precious about it either. But I will say that I would prefer to have the SNES version on instead.
I'm not going to go to bat one or the other for a game I gave a 77 to. So it's just you guys.
Yeah, that's tough. I hadn't even thought of this, but the point that you made about EJ having played that version, I think that holds some merit. I'd be okay doing it with the understanding that it's going to move a lot lower.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being added, especially since we did have a dedicated podcast reviewing this version of the game. Not like all entirely glowing, but I mean, we all liked it, and EJ even said that with time between you and the game, you like it probably more than when you first played it. So it's like, I think it's a very charming game, and it does hold up in a lot of ways. So I'm fine with swapping it over. I like the SNES version. That's the one I played.
I appreciate it.
Let me throw you a swap then that will go down a little easier. Guitar Hero 3 for Guitar Hero 2.
Yes.
Do it. Do it.
It has the better set list. I mean, the first one has some good stuff. Laid to Rest, Strutter. But the second one, obviously, right? The third one, obviously, having actual cuts from the band. And it's got some icon. It's got Through the Fire and the Flames, which is an iconic Guitar Hero track. It's the one everyone remembers. But it's got a ton of favorites for me. It's got some Kiss. It's got one by Metallica, and it's got
the boss battles.
Definitely an easy swap.
Cart swap.
Heart swap, brother.
Damn, we're already back to Nick then.
Do we want to do all of our HD swaps or like sequel swaps off the bat before we get to new games?
No, because I know one in particular is going to ignite a long debate, and I would rather save that until we've got a few more of the easy things down.
Okay. Shout out to Zelda.
Yeah, we all know what it is.
I can right or wrong as well. I'll throw out Risk of Rain 2.
Oh, you're taking one of my 2 additions.
For EJ. I'm doing it for EJ.
Thanks, man. Now I don't have to cut Wii Sports.
I won't go out and say that I've got more chops than you do, but I mean, I'm just looking at the few that I have added that I'm like fine with dropping. You know, we'll keep it in genre. EJ, how would you feel about us dropping Rogue Legacy in favor of Risk of Rain 2? It is a very different thing, obviously. Risk of Rain being very heavily multiplayer. Can be played single player, but is like best enjoyed multiplayer. Rogue Legacy sort of inspiring a generation inspired Hades. Like, you wouldn't have Hades without Rogue Legacy, because it took the rogue genre, popularized it, and made it so that it was like an RPG with long-lasting progression between runs. Like, you were adding more than just unlocking new items to get while doing a run, but also just generally making your character stronger.
Yeah, you know, for me, looking at all of the roguelites that are going to be on this list, Hades, Dead Cells, Risk of Rain, Rogue Legacy is my least favorite of those. So I would be fine with that, but that's also one that I'm sure you like Rogue Legacy quite a bit more than something like Dead Cells or even Hades maybe.
Sure, but it's not about me. I'm just looking at the things that I made. I put on the list last time. I put Rogue Legacy on the list. I know that you also enjoyed it and you were not opposed to it. Chris doesn't have any really experience on Rogue Legacy. I haven't played the sequel. I've heard that it's pretty much the same thing but better. So maybe at some point in episode 200, we'll get around to adding Rogue Legacy 2 and righting the wrongs of removing Rogue Legacy because of its legacy. But I don't know. That's just something that I'm offering up. Unless you would rather make a swap for one of your games that you suggested, because I know that you would have made a suggestion for this as well.
Yeah, it was definitely the first thing on my list. Yeah, I mean, the only games of mine that would consider chopping, and I think there's only one of them that you guys would agree to, is Legendary Super Warriors. The other two being Crash 2 and Wii Sports. So it's kind of like, I feel like I don't have a lot of wiggle room to really add things to this list. Personally, I would have no problem with Rogue Legacy going, but like we said, it's especially because the first Risk of Rain isn't on here, and I feel like that's kind of weird too. Would you take Rogue Legacy over something like the first Risk of Rain or Returns?
No, I think I offered Rogue Legacy because of our shared playing of it. I was trying to stick to games that more than I had just played. I do have some exceptions to that, obviously, but those are the ones that I kind of want to keep. So I don't have that sort of flexibility as far as what I've offered previously and what I would like to replace it with.
In a vacuum, then, with that criteria, then yeah, I think that's a perfectly reasonable swap. I don't know how strongly you feel about Risk of Rain 2, if it's as strongly as I feel about it, but
Risk of Rain 2 is a better game than Rogue Legacy. I mean, it's a game that I would rather play more often, but I also did really, really love my time with Rogue Legacy, especially it being the first of that genre that really clicked with me. So it's tough. I mean, it's hard to compare games even within the same genre, especially based on times and like when you played them. I played Rogue Legacy when I first built my first gaming PC, and it was obviously it's not a very demanding game, and my gaming PC was not exactly state of the art, but it was something I could play on Steam and it was cheap. So it was like, hell yeah, this is cool. It was the same time as like Super Meat Boy, you know? So It was like 2016-ish, 2015 maybe.
I don't want to kill your babies for you. You know?
These are my only 2 editions, so it's just like I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add or subtract, really. So if you, I mean, I'll leave it up to you. If you would rather swap out, if you would rather keep Rogue Legacy and kill one of your other babies instead, like I can't make that decision for you. I'm not going to offer up those games for you either, but I also know that you have some connection to Rogue Legacy, and if you want to keep that on the list, then I'm not going to overstep my boundaries just because I was the one that offered it. You also like it, so it's our list.
If we're just going to go one for one, then that is perfectly reasonable to me. You know, we're going to end up still with how many roguelites are going to be on this list.
Plenty. We'll figure that out later. Lots of rogue likes. As it turns out, a genre that we all really like. That's a big change in the last calendar year.
What's the difference between a roguelike and a roguelite?
Generally, people use the continued progression to be a staple of the roguelite. Something that is more of a roguelike would be Into the Breach, where you're not really getting stronger with each run. You're just gaining knowledge. You're not even really unlocking things with each run. You unlock different ships or whatever if you beat the game, quote unquote, with a certain crew. But yeah, I think Binding of Isaac might be roguelite. I don't know if there's really carryover. You unlock, like Binding of Isaac, you don't get stronger. You just unlock new drops. So that's like more of a traditional roguelike. The original Rogue, if you aren't aware, is like an ASCII art command line looking video game where you don't know what things did and you wouldn't know until you use them. So you'd get like potions, it would just say brown potion, and you wouldn't know what the brown potion did till you used it. And it might poison you, so you just be like, well, fuck this run. And you have to start over. But it's very much old school dungeon crawler kind of kicking the balls kind of game.
Okay. And also procedurally generated your map every time.
Yes. Back in the day when the map was literally just a map and you wouldn't know what the map was until you explored it because fuck you.
I got another easy one. Maybe. I would like to offer Shovel Knight Treasure Trove as opposed to Shovel Knight.
Same thing.
It's not though, because of the or are we going to consider like Spectre
Can
of
you
Torment?
buy Shovel Knight by itself?
Are we going? Well, it's listed as Wii U right now, in which case yes. But
The Wii U got all the DLC as well.
did it?
And it was free DLC. Yeah. Maybe not the multiplayer battle mode.
Are we?
But like, it got all the single player content.
Okay, so then are we? We are considering the Shovel Knight that is on this list as including Spectre of Torment and King of Cards.
Yes.
And okay, great. Then this game's
we
way.
we talked about that.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I had a stroke and forgot it then. Well, that's way too fucking low then, and we can just reevaluate that when we get closer. But that's way too low.
Okay. That is a lot.
I need to go back and play those DLCs, man. The first one was just not good. I did not like it, and I never went back.
Spectre was great. King of Cards was fantastic. Yeah.
Spectre, honest to get like the movement in that. Well, we'll talk about it more when we get there. But yes, those games are fucking phenomenal. And they literally only got better each successive entry. Although I would side with Spectre Knight because it's more like grim dark, and King Knight's such a chode.
But the card game is so good.
It's so good. Oh man, I'm such a sucker for well done video game card games. I guess keep me away from Gwent, or I'm gonna have a bad time. Okay, well that is a thing.
All right,
let's
easy.
talk. Let's talk Metroid then. What do you want to do, man? Do you want to split this? Do you want to swap the trilogy for remastered HD 1-for-1? Do you want to make sure that Echo still is in the mix? Me and you got to kind of figure that out because we came to the trilogy compromise, and I want to make sure that we honor your feelings in this as well.
Which was cheating in the first place. I mean, we could just go out and say that because, I mean, we have Mario Bros. 3 and Mario World separate, and we could just do Mario All-Stars plus World, and like, that's all in one cartridge. Ha ha ha, that's the best game of all time. Move that up the list a little bit, but
Yeah, we did.
yeah, I
Why
mean,
not?
why not? Because we have integrity, EJ.
Okay. Well, speak for yourself.
Maybe.
We're in our
It's our list.
30s.
There are no rules.
Our structural
Yeah.
integrity's falling apart. I don't know what you're talking about.
Can confirm.
Yeah, we're tagless. I don't know. Obviously, Prime HD is the definitive way to play Metroid Prime. It's also a way that has been enabled by modders and hackers in the form of Prime Hack, which is how I played 2 and 3 most recently. And it's fantastic. It's a great way to play with dual stick, better textures. Doesn't really need a lot of work. It just needs to be upscaled a little bit. Bake some new lighting, whatever. But yeah, Prime HD is the only one that's gotten this treatment on the Switch on a new platform, besides like Prime Trilogy being available in the Wii U, but still not having dual stick. Like you just had to play those games the way the Dark Gods intended, with the nasty stick control where you're just stop and pop, or the Wii Motion Plus,
Which
controls,
Which was good.
We're fine, but it got a little bit too cute in Prime 3, especially.
Oh, 100%.
Thinking of like the soldering puzzles and the fucking fight against Gendrada or whatever. She's just humping your face and you gotta waggle her off. It sucked.
Yeah.
Or the fight against Ridley at the very beginning, that sucked. Like falling down a pit is cool. Fighting him with a Wiimote, bad. So I don't know. We don't have to have Prime Trilogy. We can just swap it for Prime HD. That's fine. I just wanted to have my cake and eat it too with Prime 2 because I do really like Prime 2 and I think I like it more than Prime 1.
Yeah, if we get a proper HD version of that game, there is definitely a strong case to be made to switch that the next time we revisit. You know, from our mouth to Shiggy's ears, or whoever the fuck makes the decisions over there now.
Or have both and truly have a Metroid pilled top 100 because, of course.
Okay, great. Well, then I would like to do that.
Here's something I haven't figured out in my own brain, but let me just float it. I talked about when we did our top 10s last week, which were 3 distinct top 10s, and mine was top 10 of the last 8 years since our last top 10. I had talked about how if I was doing a top 10 all time, Gen 1 Pokemon might rise back up to overtake Gen 2. And the more I thought about that and sat with that, I know that Gen 1 is represented here with Let's Go, and that was a great experience. And I think its inclusion on this list is a worthy one. But part of me just feels like Gen 1 was just so important to me, and I think the rest of us, that like I don't know if Gen 2 fully represents for me what Gen 1 does. Not that Crystal should go anywhere. Crystal's goated. Crystal stays right where it's at. But does Pokemon Red and Blue make the list? And is that too many goddamn Pokemon games? Like, there's a lot of them
If you're
on this
gonna
list.
put Gen 1 on here, I don't know that I want Let's Go on here because I think that I love Let's Go and I think it's the best way to experience Kanto. It feels redundant if we're going to have another way to experience Kanto on this list because I think that was part of the reasoning last time is that we wanted Gen 1 represented. So I would be, depending on what you want to offer to cut of your games, maybe. But then I'm kind of like, why do we need both? Like, I'm not sure.
It is definitely redundant. And this is sort of, when looking at this list as a cross-section of games we love and games that were important to us, this is kind of both. It feels like a pretty big omission, but it is redundant. What do we have? Crystal, Let's Go, Conquest, Snap,
Go.
and Go. Jesus Christ. Like, that's a lot of Pokemon for a top 100.
Not all of them will still be here.
Interesting.
Let's go.
Okay.
Pokemon Go away.
All right. You know what? I table this discussion. I just wanted to bring it up. It seems like it's a non-starter.
I think it's a totally valid discussion. I think we're going to have a similar discussion when we're talking about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, let me think about it because I could see it swapping for Let's Go, but I like that Let's Go does something different. And also knowing that Pokemon Go is going away, even though Pokemon Go is like a social experience. I mean, the games are not the same, but at least there's a little bit of that flavor in some of the mechanics that it feels like, okay, maybe we leave it then, especially with Go leaving. I don't know. We'll table it. We'll come back to it.
Do you have another substitution then?
I want to put one of the South Park games on here. And last week I talked about how I liked the second one better. The battle mechanics, everything is just deeper. The game looks nicer. Topically, I think I prefer sort of where a lot of those jokes originate. I was reading a little bit about these games, and people just seem to overwhelmingly prefer Stick of Truth. And someone said that Stick of Truth is a South Park game with a coat of Ubisoft paint, whereas Fractured But Whole is a Ubisoft game in South Park paint. And I thought that was interesting. And I don't know if I just don't know South Park well enough to like consider that accurate. And maybe because I'm a very casual fan of South Park, like that just didn't matter to me. I'm strictly looking at them as sort of video games. I don't know if that's totally true. I do think that the final boss battle in Fractured But Whole is pretty weak relative to the rest of the game. And if you're looking at how cohesive the first game is, like there's an argument there. I want one of these games on the list. They're just so unique and they're fun and they're dumb and they're extremely competent RPGs that, again, like I've said how many weeks in a row now, no other games do anything quite like this, with the exception of that one Nintendo franchise sometimes.
And they don't even do it anymore.
Right.
Sure don't.
I feel like just for that reason and sort of time and place thing for me, platinuming both of these games back to back, I'm like, it has to make the list. However, the question then becomes, I know, Nick, last year when we did this, you were not particularly, you didn't feel strongly enough about something like Stick of Truth to really even consider it. That's also before I replayed that game and then beat the sequel. So now with all that context, if I were to put one of these games on there, do you feel strongly enough that it should be the first one over the sequel?
I mean, it seems like to me, since you played them back to back, it seems like you're not enamored more, like a lot more with Fractured But Whole over Stick of Truth, that I think it would be more representative of our shared interest in these games. That would be Stick of Truth at this point. If I ever do get around to playing Fractured But Whole and agreeing with you that it's a better game, then we would make that swap or make some other changes, whatever. But I would go for Stick of Truth. That game is really good.
Let's slide in Stick of Truth. I think you should play Fractured But Whole. Dude, I was watching a video again this morning, and I was like, man, the combat was really cool in that game. It kept everything that makes those games unique with like the active battle, like, you know, every attack has some sort of hotkey you got to time to make it stronger, but also adding the grid and like everything has a different area of effect or a lane that you can attack in. So it's just, the combat is just infinitely better than the first game, which was just janky weapon wheel, rock, paper, scissors, potioning way too fucking much. You know what I mean? It was like fine, but the worst part about that game was the combat. Whereas I think in the sequel, the best part about the game is the combat. So
It's on my list. I own the game. I will play it.
you'll get to it. You'll get to it. All right, well, let's just take a truth. I look at something like Crash 2, and there's a lot of nostalgia there for my early days, but like Spyro's there, and I think that adequately fills that slot. I don't know. I love Spyro way more than I ever loved Crash, as much as I liked Crash, and we played the crap out of it as a kid. I'm like, Crash 4 came out, the Insane Trilogy came out, and I didn't beat either of those games. Like, Crash 4 is really good and hard, but like, I platinumed all 3 Spyro games, so that like says enough right there to me that if those, for me, are filling the same sort of slot and purpose, that I could see Crash going if you guys didn't feel strongly about it one way or the other. I figure Wii Sports is a non-starter, right?
It's less of a starter than Crash. Crash, I have zero. Like, I never played those games when I was a kid, really. So,
Crash is more my frame of reference for the like PlayStation era mascot platformers. Those are games I've gone back to. I mean, I'm not playing on PlayStation, but I platinum equivalent Crash 1, platinum equivalent Crash 2, did everything, got everything. Spyro, I'm, working my way through Spyro 1, or was last summer, and then Tears of the Kingdom took over, and I never really came back to it. Guess I'm not saying I have a particularly strong argument for it staying, just that would be something that there is a shared frame of reference for Crash in a way there isn't for Spyro.
See, my only other cut that I can like reasonably think of is Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors. But obviously Nick played it for 14 minutes and didn't like it. Chris,
dude, I played for like 2 hours, brother.
Yeah, we
okay, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but
hyperbolic time chipper.
Felt like I was in one.
Wow. That game is just too important to me as being like, I remember that day. It was like 2 days after Christmas, and my mom drove us out to Toys R Us, and I bought my Game Boy Advance with a bunch of gift cards I got for Christmas that year. And I bought this game because it's all I had left over, was all I could afford was a Game Boy Color game. And I bought the only Dragon Ball Z game they had, and I ended up loving this game. And I have all these memories of playing this game at the playground at fucking North Gresham Elementary School on the backside of Mount Hood Community College, because my dad used to cut video at MCTV over there, and I would just be at the loading docks in the back of the MCTV building, like trying to find some light to play this game. I love this game. Revisiting it, I really enjoyed my time with it. I don't want to cut this game.
So cut Infinite World instead.
Yeah!
Uh-oh, he's going Super Saiyan 3.
Do we need 2? Yeah, you do have Infinite World. Do we need 2 objectively bad but very nostalgically enjoyable Dragon Ball Z games on here? I would say
objectively bad.
I would say no. Let's see. That is a 48, brother man. That is a 48 Metacritic. 48. Easily the lowest scored game on this list.
Infinite World is just another Budokai game, and that was sort of for the boys back home, but it fulfills the role of being, it's just Budokai 1 and 2 and 3, but like different menus. And people didn't like it because it came out really late, and it got rid of the dumb shit that Budokai Tenkaichi did and didn't do anything new. But it's fulfilling that same role, and to me, that is important to have. Unless you pretend that was Budokai 2 or something. Would we be talking about cutting it?
I would rather that go than Crash. Yeah, 100%. I have way more attachment to Crash than DBZ fighting games. Personally speaking, I'm going to be killing... All these games on this list are important enough to me that they could remain here. Gotta be willing to roll with where you're at this moment in time.
48's pretty funny.
It is pretty funny.
I have to do a brief. I got to peruse my list and see what else that I have contributed here.
A last second audit.
My man really said, we're ready to go. We got our cuts. We reviewed our lists.
He was more than willing to cut Crash, but you said, isn't there someone else you forgot to ask?
I was ready to do it. I had everything ranked and laid out in front of me.
The myth of consensual swaps.
See, the higher I go in this list, I'm like, I can't cut Marvel vs. Capcom. It's just
no.
There's just games that can't go anywhere at this point. So
yeah,
I feel like I got away with a lot of these like crappier but personally beloved titles because of how I got railroaded through the rest of the podcast, both in the ranking and in what got to stay. So you guys threw me some bones, you know? You guys threw me a little...
We were very ameliorating to you.
Like, don't worry. He truly has no say. Let him have 2 fucking 50s, okay? Oh, man.
Truly just abhorrent games.
Just let the boy have it, okay? He has nothing else. It makes no difference to us. Please, sir, can I have some more? Just a scrap? Just a Dragon Ball or 2? This is really hard. So Chris doesn't want to crash. And I would do it in a heartbeat over these 2 really funny Dragon Ball Z games.
That's fucking crazy, dude. That's like actually insane. I know, like, there's nostalgia, and then there's I'm just refusing to let go. Like, Plock's gonna go, brother. It's gonna go away. It's not great. I love it, but it's not great. And that's okay.
No, but you also have 9 other games that like fill the role of like beloved cult classic that you played with your brothers. All I have is Dragon Ball Z Infinite World. Why did Chris have to play Crash? It's unraveling all of my plans. So how do you guys feel about WarioWare Touched? No, I'm kidding.
It's a great game. Great game.
I'm kidding.
It's so wild that you got that suggestion and I didn't. You really just jumped on it.
Yeah, this is because, again, I didn't have my games ranked in that first episode. I just was, here's 100 games that I like, and I'm just going to throw them out randomly, and then we'll rank later. Listening back to that pod, you guys were very cool with. Thought that was a great idea because it was just off right out of the heart. And then I got yelled at for it later. All right, I was getting real mixed signals there, boys. But anyway, South Park Stick of Truth. I would rather keep all the other ones and get rid of Wii Sports. I'm not going to lie. Here's the thing about Wii Sports. Maybe I'll convince myself otherwise. It is so nostalgic, like the sounds and sights of the Wii system, as much as I hate the Wii and how that generation unfolded and how I think did long-term damage to Nintendo's brand and their philosophy as a video game company. The Wii, the jingles, the bowling just really sums up an era of my life as a video gamer in high school where it was just really 4 years of the Wii and Wii Sports and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And it feels like that's important. But as far as games go, Wii Sports probably has, I don't know, I think every other game on this list has more meat on its bones than Wii Sports. And to me personally, Wii Sports probably means the least when looking at these other cuts. And so if I can't cut Crash 2, that seems reasonable. I don't know. Thoughts on Wii Sports? Are there thoughts on Wii Sports?
I think Chris has more love for Wii Sports than I do. It is a really good pack-in game, launch title, experience. It really sold what the Wii was. And it was the most fun you had with a Wii until, I don't know, like Mario Kart came out, I guess. So we don't have like a lot of shared love for that console generation for Nintendo in general on this podcast, I don't think. So it's hard to like really defend it, I guess, but it was a really great time. Bowling was a lot of fun.
EJ,
Boxing was a lot of fun. Tennis was great. Baseball was great.
I will make you an offer. If you will just take Infinite World in the back and old Yeller it, I will swap Ragnarok for God of War 2018.
I'm fine with Ragnarok being on this list. It was The Last of Us 2 I was really adamant against.
You raised quite a stink about 2018 versus Ragnarok. And maybe that's why then you were so adamant about Last of Us 1 versus Last of Us 2. But that is something I'm willing to do because I know it is a more mutually beloved entry in the series.
Yeah, in the interest of Nick having also played that game, I think it would be a worthy swap. I had a lot more fun with Ragnarok, personally.
You had a lot less good things to say about that game than you did 2018.
I think the story was an absolute mess, but as a video game, it was a lot more engaging to me than the first one. It's how I feel about Last of Us 2, where, yeah, I just thought the narrative structure and the way they did certain things was a fucking wreck, but they just made so many gameplay improvements that it's hard to judge them like, oh, these are like one-for-one sequels. Like, they're quite different. Those first games do something so well and so strongly and are known for. It's hard to, in my mind, surpass that. So
if you're going to cut Crash 2, then just fucking cut Crash 2. even though I don't agree with you. But just make a fucking choice one way or another.
Would you rather have Crash 2 or Wii Sports?
Okay. I don't know. I feel like it's true that Crash 2 is like a game. But we also have more of a shared frame of reference for Wii Sports.
I did play a lot of Wii Sports at the beach this summer.
And how was it?
It was fine. I think we had more fun playing 007 Nightfire and Cabela's Dangerous Hunts 2. So if that says anything about Wii Sports and or myself.
Some more potential swaps is what I'm hearing.
No. Can you imagine?
Goodbye, Infinite World. Hello, Cabela's. Although it's gunning for that and Big Buck Hunter. I mean, that's half of two sides of the same coin.
If you cut Wii Sports, the Wii has no representation on this list. I just want to put that on the table.
Good.
Well, no. But it is
Great.
It is a thing to be aware of.
Well, Prime Trilogy should be on the Switch.
I agree in my heart of hearts. I don't know. I guess I'd rather you get rid of Wii Sports.
Kill it. Take out Wii Sports. It's gone. That's fine. It had its time in the sun, in the spotlight.
Listen, you guys have your game at number 1 of all time on this list. I get to have a game for the boys back home, all right? At number 97 or 99.
98.
99.
It's going even lower,
Okay.
if you can believe that.
I'm not budging. I deserve this.
If you want to if you want to hold down those lower 20, brother, you go right ahead.
I do not need to make any more swaps. I have no more hard additions that I deeply desire. However, I did want to ask the room at large, mostly EJ, but also a lot of Chris. I don't think he actually finished this game, but maybe he got around to it. I don't know. What do we think about Mario Wonder? Does that land on our list?
That is an interesting question. It briefly crossed my mind last week. I quite liked Wonder. It's a very competent game. I 100%ed that game. That doesn't happen very often. I did everything you could do in that game.
Are we too old for that kind of game to have a lasting impact on our psyches?
No.
I was literally just about to say I have no emotional attachment to me that time frame, because I picked up Mario RPG. I was playing both of these over Thanksgiving break, basically. Literally every night I'm playing both these games back to back. I have way more attachment to Mario RPG than I do Wonder. Like, even though Wonder was a way better game and I beat the shit out of it, yeah, it doesn't really stick out in my mind as like, I mean, I'm pretty sure every Mario game on this list is like probably still better than Wonder. And maybe if I played them all back to back to back, I would feel differently. Wonder's really good.
The only thing I think that could potentially be unseated, which I don't really know how I feel about, is 3D World. And I Wonder is one of those that, I get to co-op stuff with Tiffany very rarely, but she is a Mario girl. And we did, well, it's not fully complete. The last we played, we got to the final challenge level, and we have not spent time with it yet. But we functionally played that game to completion together, and it was delightful to play that together. And it is a super charming game and a game that makes me very happy. I don't know what we would switch it with other than 3D World, which, like I said, I really like. That's not my game though. It could have been my game. I would have suggested that game if EJ didn't.
I will say, I think I like Wonder more than Odyssey, but I haven't played Odyssey in 7 years, so it's hard to compare those two in my mind.
I don't think that's a starter for Nick though. I'm not even going to make my thoughts on that known because it's pointless.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Mario on this list. So we got 3D World, Maker 2, Mario Bros. 3. That's Chris's game. Mario Land 2.
I would be okay with Mario Bros. 3 going away. I think that preserves 3D World, which I really like. It also preserves Yoshi's Island, which is my favorite Mario game in the pre-3D era. So,
Mario in name only.
yeah, that's a switch I would be fine with.
See, Mario Bros. 3 is the only NES representation, and I think that's important.
Well,
It's where it's all started for Nintendo.
Sure, but does that matter? This is our list, not Nintendo's list. There are a couple games that are on here that I'm like, these are on here in reputation only, that I want to open that can eventually.
Sure.
I would be fine with that Switch because of the fact that I played that game with my wife, and that is important to me, that that's a game that I could play.
And Mario Wonder was really, really good. It just was so brief in its standing as far as like, EJ, you and I, we both played it, both really liked it, and that's been it. Like, it hasn't really stuck around in the way some other platformers have.
It's been out for 5 months. It hasn't had time to stick around.
But I'm just saying, like, EJ thought of it briefly, but didn't bring it up, and I brought it up because I wanted to talk about it, because I don't know if I wanted to swap it for anything. I don't know. I can't really think. Tears of the Kingdom was very impactful, and we're going to be talking about that for a long time. But Mario Wonder, we have to like struggle to think about in comparison to other Mario titles, and it's tough because we played a lot of those when we were younger, and when you're younger, things are more impactful because that's just how time works.
Right. If we're like really like in the interest of refining this list to be the best version of itself, and we're strictly looking at Mario games, there's probably 2 Mario games at least that it could slot in over. But again, we factor in time and place, and we factor in nostalgia. Like, Nick, you're really attached to Super Mario Land 2. I think it's the worst Mario game on this list. It's a good Mario game. It's cool. It's impressive what that did on the Game Boy.
Yeah.
It's also the worst Mario game on the list, but like that's not enough of an argument to be like, well, we should swap that for Odyssey, because you're more emotionally attached to or Super Mario Land 2 than you are Odyssey, you know?
Wonder, you mean?
Wonder, excuse me, not Odyssey. See, I got Odyssey on the brain. Swap them out. Swap them out. No.
It also gets really tough when we're talking about like are we more interested in representing the best games or in representing us as players and the things that we are the most interested in? Because I find Mario Land 2 to be a preeminently interesting game with many ideas I wish were implemented and iterated upon in other titles, but just never got to see the light of day again. And you don't see the bunny ears or the carrot or like the fun choose your own level layout that the game offered. Like, it's such a unique title. And I don't think the Wonder abilities were really cool, and I liked all the things that added to otherwise a very dry and formulaic output from Nintendo over the past 15 years with the new Super Mario Brothers games. So it's interesting in that it was a return to form, and it was a refreshing sort of take on that idea space. But I don't think it necessarily, like, if we're only talking about Mario games, I don't think it really surpasses or supplants any of the games that we already have representing Mario on our list. So I just wanted to talk about it to see if there was any other alternate feelings. And Chris, I love that you brought up that it was a great multiplayer experience. And yeah, I agree. I had a great time playing this game with EJ. I don't think the multiplayer has really been very good at all in any of the other Mario games. So that's like a really cool, I'm glad that they finally got it right. It's still not great as far as like the online play. Just a little bit janky and weird, but I mean, I think it's the best way that they've done that, where you're not locked camera wise on the screen with everyone you're playing with. You can kind of run back and forth, and that works out for me as someone who likes to either rush ahead or go looking for secrets or whatever. I don't have to babysit someone while they're doing their own thing and while I'm trying to do my own thing, and it's not competitive and like bopping people and hitting them into like off cliffs and stuff. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it. It was a really big game last year. It was a lot of fun, but I don't know if that's like enough, you know?
Listen, if Chris feels strongly enough to get rid of Mario Bros. 3, its ties to the NES is not enough to make me fight it. Wonder is a perfectly worthy inclusion, but if it doesn't make the list, I also won't think about it ever again.
And I also came to Mario Bros. 3 really late, so I don't have that sort of attachment like I do with like Mario World. So obviously, if that was your introduction to that style of gameplay or whatever, like I see it. Obviously, people argue about Mario Bros. 3 versus Mario World all the goddamn time.
We did.
So clearly
50 episodes ago.
So it's like, I don't know. It's not about which is the better game. It's not about who likes it more. It's a little bit about who likes it more, but it's like trying to get that balance and that representation of like the things that we think identify us as gameplay enjoyers. And we got a little bit of a taste of that with our top 10s last week. So it's sort of similar in that regard, but more of like a collective kind of interpretation. Like this isn't personal, it's our group effort on the matter.
I think I could switch this for Super Mario 3, but I think the fact that there was not a specific movement to do it tells me there's not enough group impetus for that.
And I agree with that. I wanted to talk about it. If you do feel like it does deserve that, that would be on you because you would be the one killing the baby.
Yeah.
So
it's a worthy inclusion on the list, but not enough for, I mean, we're not going to sit here offering up Chris's games to get something on. It's like, it's not enough for us to want to kill our games.
But I'm glad we talked about it in the context of this list because I did like talking about it prior. And I think we probably did mention talking about it in the context of our top 100 and how we would be revising that. So thank you for entertaining my flight of fancy with this.
Yeah, sure. And I do think regardless of whether or not it ends up here, it is going to be like the most memorable and certainly was the most like evocative and interesting 2D Mario game in ever, maybe, probably. Like,
I'll be thinking of Piranha Plants on Parade every time there's a new Mario game.
yeah, I mean, it's, so I'll kick the tires on that. So Nick, you said you have no substitutions, exchanges, or refunds. You are good.
I am good.
I have no idea why either of you would object to this, and I wouldn't say I'm frustrated. I'm not done with this game yet because it will impede my ability to know where it needs to go on this list because I don't know what they're doing with the ending of this game, but I do want to just switch Remake for Rebirth because I think it is such a substantially better video game in literally every conceivable way that I cannot in good conscience leave Remake on here knowing that Rebirth exists. And in 50 episodes, if I'm very sour on the ending for some reason, then it can change. But I don't see a reason to have Remake when Rebirth is here and is a very legitimate Game of the Year candidate and would deserve it if it won, based on what's out there so far.
You're the expert, man. The only other swap that I had, not even a swap, a game that I'd thought of that we played quite a bit, and I remember finally, was we played the first Borderlands game, and I've played multiple entries in this franchise, but Borderlands 1 is the one that I think we played the most and that we beat. I don't know, like, if it's worth replacing. All the games that I think it's better than are on this list because of nostalgia, and all the games that I would consider contemporary, it is not better than. So it's maybe a non-starter. But, you know, like I've talked about recently, the way I feel about some of these games is I feel much stronger about something when I have memories tied to playing them or the time I was playing them with somebody else.
Which is valid.
Yeah, and that's why like Infinite World, I'm like, yeah, like that game should go. But like, is it any funnier than Plock or Trauma Center or like whatever? But I'm like, dude, that's like when we got fed up with the Wii, all my brother and I played for the next 3 years was our PS2, and we were just playing Dragon Ball Z together. I'm like, that's important to me, even though that game is not great in like the grand scheme of things.
It's the one you had.
To me, it is like the most iterated of the Budokai franchise. It was like, let's just get back to basics and be a good Budokai game. And people were like, this feels too stripped back. What was it with it? You'd have those like beam battles midair. Those are fucking dumb. I don't want to fucking jump into a goddamn QuickTime event in the middle of my fighting game. You know what I mean? People love that. I didn't. So to me, this was like, oh, we're back to basics. We're fucking, yeah, the roster was small, whatever, but that's what we were playing, you know?
Yeah, and at that point, Bandai was full-blown Tenkaichi.
Never liked those games, man. Never liked them. I'd be curious to see what the new Sparking Zero or whatever, how that's going to feel.
Speaking of games that actually may get a Toriyama bump, one to look for, maybe a decent pickup, certainly better than fucking Sandland is going to be for Brandon's hapless ass. Shout out Fantasy Critic. Can't wait for the League Quarterly next weekend. Love you, Brandon, but Jesus H. Christ, unironically Sandland post demo, which is getting eviscerated on the internet. Good fucking luck to you, buddy. Godspeed. EJ, do you have another something to consider?
I just brought up Borderlands, and I don't think I have anything that I would want to give up in lieu of it. But it bore mentioning. It was something that probably would have made the initial cut last time had I remembered it. No, the last thing for me, the big one is Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild conversation, and
I feel like we should just do that last.
sure. Well, then bullet list us through.
Your 7 other swaps, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot, and we'll see how many of them actually happen. I want to ask, because once I mentioned it, and started thinking about it, I went, actually, maybe this is something I want to do, not as part of a deal. If we did go 2018 instead of Ragnarok, do you think that would be that would move up a little bit on the list? Because if it's just a lateral swap, then I don't know if I care. But if it's a swap that we're all like, great, we all played this, 2 of us beat it and enjoyed it quite a lot, and certainly the story is excellent. I think Ragnarok is really, really good too. But do you think that would move up? And I'm not asking in the interest of like, I want more highly rated games, but I want more games that we've all played and that at least more than one of us feel really good about. So
To me, it probably wouldn't move up. It's a lateral move. I do think that the strength of that game is in its story and its boss encounters. And I think the focus on those characters is much more narrow, which I think serves the game better than what they tried to do in Ragnarok, despite Ragnarok being more refined and being a fun experience. And I enjoyed romping around that world more than I did in 2018. I mean, 2018 took me 3 tries before I finally beat it. And I'm glad I got over the hump because, again, that narrative and just how tight the story was with those 2 characters and how emotional it was stands out to me. But Nick also played this game and liked this game, and I think plat on this game?
Yeah, I got the plat.
Oh, well, then we need to make that switch. I don't care if it moves. If all 3 of us beat that game, I'd rather that game's on this list.
Right, and we did bring that up last year, but we were so heated in arguing over, I mean, this was our compromise over The Last of Us, so with a year between us, you know, I did platinum Ragnarok, and while there was a lot of really cool stuff, like post-game to mess around with, and some of the boss stuff was really entertaining, I have PTSD from like the cleanup, following a guide and going through every nook and cranny of the realm. I did not have fun. Oh my God.
You missed a lot of stuff. And that's not a shot. I just was really intrigued that when I got ready to do mine, I mean, I'm talking like maybe 2 items per realm that I had to go back and get.
I wasn't trying to collect everything. I was trying to beat the game. And then we were like, we're Platinum's game. And I was like, fuck, I got to go back.
That is the downside of zerging the story, which is why I'm not fucking... That's why I generally don't do it as a gameplay guiding principle. It's like, I want to do it in the moment because I know it's going to be harder. Like, there's a couple things to get the Platinum and Rebirth that I really, really don't want to do. And I'm going to have to decide when I get to the point, and they'll signpost. They do a really good job of signposting. You will not be able to come back to this area for a long time. Do you want to proceed? Which I appreciate as a modern design principle. When I reach the point where it's like, this is going to take you to the end of the story. Are you ready? I will have to decide in that moment, do I want to go back and do Fort Condor on hard mode to get the Platinum Trophy, or do I not care? And I will follow a guide. I will literally pull up a YouTube playlist of people beating Fort Condor, and I will ape their build and the exact spawn times of all of their units so that I can beat it. I will do that for the sake of the Platinum Trophy, but I have to make that choice before I finish the main game, because when the main game's done, it's done. It's over. It's over. I don't care. And on my hard mode replay, it's just going to be story. I mean, I'm going to be skipping cutscenes. I'm just going to beat the game. Anyway. Roll up your sleeves and buckle up, bitches, because now I'm going to start actually making some changes to my list. This has all been real cute, real like, you know, swappy swap, 1-for-1 kind of stuff. Now I am going to really get into some substitutions. First, goodbye, Plock. I love you so much. You are a mascot platformer that never got your rightful time in the sun. You never got the Nintendo 64 sequel you so richly deserve. I will miss you, but I want Cuphead on this list, and Plock has got to go.
Oh, this feels such a relief. Cuphead is a way more worthy inclusion.
You
on this
have
list.
Dragon Ball Z, Infinite World, and legendary fucking Super Warriors. Do not talk to me about worthy games. If we know they're heart picks, you can kiss my lily white bubble butt, sir.
A 72, a great, perfectly cromulent Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, it's like putting Tiny Toons Bust Loose on this list. You know, it's like, oh, I get it. You loved it 30 years ago.
People like Buster Bust Loose.
Look, I don't care if there are heart picks on this list, but if you're gonna sit here and tell me that I need to kill my heart picks that are important to me with my family when you spent literally probably 15 fucking minutes hemming and hawing about killing a heart pick that's close to you because of your family.
I didn't tell you needed to. Otherwise, we would have replaced it with Mario Wonder. I just am expressing my opinion now that you've decided to, as you expressed yours about Infinite World. So
Perfectly fair. Perfectly fair, Chris. Let's go.
Cuphead fucks.
Cuphead's great.
Cuphead
Cuphead
fucks,
is
bro.
an outstanding game. We haven't, I don't think, really talked about this game on here because I played that very pre-podcast. When this game came out on Xbox, it came out, it was an Xbox exclusive. It had been in the ether forever. This is one of those I saw at E3 and went, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. All of that gorgeous hand-drawn animation in the style of Max Fleischmann. Is that his name? The guy who did like
Fleischer, I believe.
Fleischer, yeah. With like Felix the Cat.
Fleshman.
So I this is a game I tracked its development. I thought that it was going to be, when it finally came out, it was going to be something I absolutely had to play. I did not own an Xbox. This is the Xbox Series X. No, this is the Xbox One era. I didn't have an Xbox. So I paid for the game on my friend Nicholas's Xbox, and we would get together, smoke weed, eat a bag of spicy Doritos and a box of oatmeal cream pies, and play Cuphead. Cuphead, when you play cooperatively, yes, you can revive by parry jumping into your dead teammate's little beating heart. But it is much harder because the boss HP all scales for two people. We did not make a lot of headway in this game. When I finally downloaded it for Switch, when it came to Switch, I absolutely devoured it. It is the epitome of hard but fair as a design ethos, that we are going to make you work to beat this game. You are going to have to work hard. You are going to have to be on your shit every time you step into one of these boss fights or one of these run and gun levels. And if you die, you will know it's your fault and you will know why it's your fault. And when you go back for your next run, it is up to you to implement the things that you have to do to make that successful. This game was thrilling to play on Switch, and getting into those last couple of boss fights. I remember finally beating the devil. When I finally broke through, beat the game. Tiffany and my roommate at the time, Dan Shalhoub, I can't remember if her brother was living with them or not, but definitely Dan and Tiffany had both been like watching me make runs at these last couple of levels, and finally beating it and seeing that like boss destruction animation and standing up and like fist pumping and shouting, and both of them just going like, yeah, because they've been watching me try to beat this fucking tough as nails boss. An extraordinarily satisfying feeling. This game is amazing. I loved the DLC when that came out. The Delicious Last Course was fantastic. It was a sizable DLC. And I just can't wait to see what kind of stuff this studio makes next. I hope they make more of these games. I know they take a long fucking time because it's all hand drawn. Soundtrack's real jazzy, very much of that 20s, 30s era. Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely outstanding game. And I think the game that moved me into a new space of wanting to take on more challenging stuff, that now that I've come around to Celeste, which I notice you are not putting on this list, EJ Olson, that I was ready for that. I was ready for a game that was going to force me to be better every time. Hyper Light Drifter, I feel similarly, but a little differently, because that's not about like do the exact thing right. It's a little bit more of like pattern memorization, knowing your systems and all of those kinds of things. It's like hard but fair. I really get off on that in a way that I would not have 10 years ago. So Cuphead, welcome to the top 100.
Yeah, Celeste, my memories of that game, they are fond. but I popped it back in to start playing it again. And I got through the first world and I was like, oh man, I am like so not ready mentally for this. You know, like I wasn't there. And so I just feel like I don't have enough kind of to go on. Like I don't know. Like, it was a weird time. It was COVID. And then I got distracted with Animal Crossing, and did I like that game as much as I thought I did? And then Nick was like, oh, I didn't like it very much, or it was fine. And I was like, shit. I'm like, am I misremembering? Like, I don't know. I just second guessed myself. And then I went to go play it again, and I just wasn't ready for it. So it felt like I just can't speak on this game right now.
It is a perfectly good game that I do not have any swaps for.
Okay, when we talked last time, we did this list. I remember getting Doom in here, and I remember asking, did we play Doom 2016? And I remember that EJ played Doom 2016, or maybe I am misremembering a little bit.
I played about an hour.
Okay, yeah, you guys didn't. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to get rid of Doom, broadly speaking. I would like to. This feels like a reputation pick that I wanted to have 2016 on the list because I thought more of us had played it. But we have not. And so as much as I have really, really fond memories of like playing the first world of Doom off of a floppy disk on our like Windows 92 computer or whatever MS-DOS ass computer, it doesn't need to be here. So I would like to put Hades on this list, and Doom is the sacrificial lamb that I would like to do to make that happen.
An appropriate thematic swap.
I thought so.
Hades is a good ass game. Obviously you've waxed at length about it on this podcast multiple times. I think once I get a little bit closer, did I sell you that copy?
You did.
I've been playing Hades on the PS5, which I thought I might regret because I hate the controller so much, but I've been playing it with my Scuff Pro controller with the back paddles, and I do not know if I would be able to play this game without those paddles. Having to move my hand off of an attack button to dash every time would drive me nuts. Instead, I just spam the old dingly fingy on the back, and it is a game changer for me.
See, this is why, and I do want to wait to talk at length about this until you've been able to do a little bit more time. This is why you are going to really like the Fists of Malphon if you haven't already unlocked the fists, because I can't remember if it's just the hidden aspect, if it's the aspect of Gilgamesh only, or if it's the fists more broadly, but one of them literally doubles your dashes. So 4 dashes per like charge per dash time. Holy shit. I mean, that is game changing, just flashing around, and then add like a Hermes boon to throw another like dash on top of that. And you're just like flipping around, bashing stuff, using your heavy attack. Like, it is absolutely frenetic and thrilling when you get into
way
those
more
builds.
waking dreams with that.
I saw a guy do a new game speed run, first run ever, and he did this like crazy like Athena dash build where he got that duo boon between Ares and Aphrodite, or Ares and Artemis. I can't remember, but it was insane, and he beats the entire game in like 25 minutes. Like, it was crazy. I have not gotten to the point where I've like really invested in my dashes outside of just like if I can get like the Doom well or the Hangover well, like I'm happy with that, level that up once or twice, but I haven't really gone deep into builds like that yet. So it's crazy what you can do in that game. I do want to do like a full deep dive podcast on it once I've only escaped a few times, but
You've done the thing. You've got the broad strokes.
I've done the thing. Yeah. I've unlocked all the weapons and all of the different resources. And so I'm like, yeah, I should try and unlock some of the legendary artifacts or whatever they're called.
Here's what I would ask. I in what we've been talking about, I understand why you are feeling like I got it and you don't know how long you'll continue to engage, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to harangue you if you're like, all right, I'm good, I got it. I want to see if you can at least make an attempt on Extremist Measures Hades, because it changes that final fight so substantively. I just wanna I want you to take a shot at that so that at the very least we can talk about it, so that I can have a reason to talk about it with somebody who like just experienced it for the first time, because it's one of the most satisfying and difficult final boss, like true final boss fights in a game that I've played in recent memory, with one of my favorite final boss tracks ever. I'm pretty sure you have to have a clear with all 3 ranks of extreme measures done. So a full clear with all 3 second versions of the area bosses. And then you have to buy extremist measures from the house contractor. But it's a relatively affordable number of gems, and if you're not really investing too much in that side of things, then you probably are sitting on like a decent amount of gems already.
I've been playing it with the intention of platinuming it, so I've been spreading things out because there's a lot on this trophy list. Anyway, we can deep dive further on it later.
More economies than a mobile game going on in
It's
80s.
it's too many, honestly.
It is extreme. Excessive.
It really is spreadsheet the game.
Totally.
Like in a lot of ways. And that's what I was talking about when I was like, like Dead Cells had like 20 dungeons and 6 bosses or whatever in just the base game. And so for me, and he's gone. I'm not gonna say Dead Cells is better than this game. It's just a different flavor. It's a different type of game. But this is very much more about like fucking around with builds and running over and over and over. Whereas normally for me, it's like I want to beat the game. Maybe I'll beat it twice just to kind of mess around with things. But the difference between beating the game in 12 runs, quote unquote, beating the game in 12 runs, and being like, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen it. I could probably YouTube the epilogue, you know? I will say I really do like that while I'm engaged with the mechanics and the gameplay, there's no repeated dialogue and there's always something uncovered. It's not enough for me to want to keep coming back to it once like I'm done with the game, but for now, it's a nice little bonus when you do get to the next thing. I'm like, oh, this is new. I'm not repeating a bunch of shit over and over and over, whereas something like Dead Cells is very Souls-like in its delivery of the lore, and that's not for me. I don't want to read some random thing or listen to some dude like tell me some like arcane gobbledygook. I'm ignoring that. So at least I feel more engaged with this than any other roguelike that I've played.
Right.
So.
And Dead Cells and most roguelikes, I would say, tend towards the dry as far as story and stuff that keeps you engaged beyond mechanical interest. Whereas Hades is an extremely wet game. And if you love it, then you love it. If you think it's fine, then it's just fine. It's not going to keep pulling you back. Like I thought the writing and performances were totally adequate and nothing beyond that.
Hard disagree. Hard disagree.
I mean, a lot of the performances are just like, how fast can I say these words? It is so rapid the way these people talk. It's like they're in a episode of Gilmore Girls or any movie by Aaron Sorkin. It's insane how fast these people talk. Like they're rapidly trying to go from one sentence to the next. I think the worst offenders is probably like Dionysus or Artemis, where they're just like rapidly going through them, and it's like not even part of their character, like it is with Hermes, which is like obvious and it's a joke, whatever, or Hypnos. It's like, oh, he's got the bad voice because it's funny, or the Gorgon head is like, oh, they've got the bad voice because it's funny. It's like, you know, this is fine. This is totally adequate, but it is not endearing. Everyone besides Mommy Nix and Baddie Meg is just like totally just adequate performances. Those two are like,
I was just going to say,
they're fantastic. I love them, but everyone else is
love
like
Meg, dude.
adequate.
Meg, who just grumbles into her microphone like she doesn't know how to take a breath and support her sound.
Love that smoker husky voice. So nice.
Oh, she's mommy, dude. 1,000%. I'm with Nick on this.
That's an interesting example to be like, that performance is good when that's the most average one, I think.
Pathos over her arc, dude, as she, it's great. Anyway, a word of the inclusion.
Yes.
Deserves to be on this
Yes.
list.
All right, so Doom's gone.
All right, Resident Evil 4, give it to us. What are you swapping out?
I'm working. Shut up. I'm cutting Jet Set Radio Future for Resident Evil 4, 2023.
There you go.
All right.
I don't even have to type it out. It's already typed out.
I love you for that. RE4, the RE4 make is just one of the best games I have ever played. I think that I respect the reasons why it was not ever really a game of the year contender. Because some people were sort of like, I would imagine some people are going, do we want to set that precedent, at least in part? And some folks are going like, yeah, this is a fucking amazing game. And it was literally a generational game 20 years ago when it came out the first time. I totally respect that. But as this is the definitive way to play this game, it is as unimpeachably good and excellent a game that I have ever experienced, and deserves its place in the pantheon of absolutely goated video games. There's just literally nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It may be like a thing you're like, I don't like this system, but that system is used well and it is consistent and it is polished. That game fucks. That's what I end up saying at the end of every time I talk about this game. Because I listen back to all the pods, of course, and I just say, like, this game fucks. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, it just fucks, and it knows how. So RE4 Make is on the list.
A game I would like to experience someday.
You can borrow my PS5 all summer.
No, you're bringing it up with you to Alaska.
Potentially.
So you can play one game, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to decide. Like, I'm of a few minds. It's also part of the problem is if I bring up my PS5, I'm not bringing my Switch. And if I don't bring my Switch, when is Paper Mario happening? And that is a game that I know we're doing a Gubrick for, and that Nate is like, I told him a year ago he's coming on the podcast for it, and he's like, yeah, I know. Like, of course I am. Because that's one of his favorite games ever.
Yeah, that's May. That's like end of May, I think. And then there's also Sea of Stars sometime in April or May.
Right, and I don't know when that's going to ship. So it's like, am I doing those? Like, obviously I'm going to do Paper Mario because we're going to Gubrick it. We talked about this a while ago, but Sea of Stars, when my physical gets here, I really want all of us to beat that. Nick, did you beat that yet?
I would like to play it, but I don't own it yet, no.
You have the Fizzy on pre-order, right? From I Am 8-Bit?
No, I'll probably get it through Amazon or Target.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, same time frame though. I would love for us to all play that game and beat that game and talk about that game. So that it's like, is it I buy Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian's store because I would rather like give the money directly and just do that all summer. I'm kicking the tires on, is this the summer that I finally do a Kingdom Hearts series playthrough because I own the full box complete set on PS4, where they took a lot of the ones that have wacky control schemes on like the 3DS and just turned it into a movie. And I'm like, great, I can beat this in an evening over dinner.
Yeah, Recoded and Rechain of Memories, all the different mobile spin-offs that are crucial to the story that matters, the story that is more than just friendship.
And it's great that I don't have to spread this out. If I just did it in like 3 months, I wouldn't have to try and go like, wait, who is that? And what is that? Like, it'll just be like right there for me. So I don't know. But in the event I don't take it up, I'll be happy to be like, Nick, here's a PlayStation 5 for the summer and some games that I think you would like. Have fun. Moving on. No one, and maybe that's because this was my game, no one brought up the potential Luigi's Mansion Switch. I know last time we talked about 3 being a much better game, but I hadn't played that game yet. I have now played that game. I didn't beat it. I fell off it, but I have now played it, and I don't know if there is a care or an aptitude to consider that game again.
Did we end up landing on, which one did we end up landing on for the list?
The first one is on the list right now.
I don't know. I still think 3 is a better game, but if you want to keep it as 1, that's fine by me. I don't really have a huge axe to grind in that regard.
I'm fine with switching it. I don't know if it's still pretty low, right? I don't know that I'd move it any higher, but I think it is a better game than the first game for sure. Some of the world design got so irritating that I just got tired of exploring. And so I was like I got into, I think, the sewers, and I was like, this literally sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped playing.
Knowing how you play games, Chris, I can understand. You're the type of person who needs to get every single thing in a level. And I think Luigi's Mansion is not built with you in mind.
I have no problem going back to look for stuff. It's been kind of cool to go back with different, skills in mind, not even necessarily new abilities, but just going, oh, the game just taught me I can use this thing in this way, and I didn't know I could do that, and then going back and looking. But literally just navigating through that area was really, really irksome, and that's where I ended up bouncing. But I was devouring it prior to that, to the degree that, and I said this on the podcast, that I bought it outright from Nate because he started offloading stuff, and I was like, oh, I want to own this. So I absolutely support that change. Let's make that change.
I love the creativity of all the different literally levels of this hotel.
Absolutely. Oh, the freaking like movie stage one where the final thing is a kaiju boss fight in this
Fucking
like
kaiju
model
fight,
city. I
so
was like,
cool, man.
this is so creative and wonderful. See, you're reminding me of like all the things about this game that I was like, damn, this game's really cool. That game is indeed very, very cool.
The Egypt or the piano concert one.
Oh, that one was cool.
The shopping mall. I mean, it's so good.
Shout out Guiji also.
That sicko. That pervert.
Well, this might be a question. I doubt it because I don't think anybody has any strong opinions about this. I'm looking at Sonic 2 here, and whomst among us? Nick has neither played nor beaten. EJ has played it and not beaten it. Then I doubt I will have any objections in substituting that for Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the Nintendo GameCube.
Sure. Chow garden it up, baby.
Chow garden it up. Sonic Adventure 2.
Escape the City is the most representative of the Sonic franchise in recent memory.
Absolutely. Just loading right into that first area. And like Sonic Adventure 1 was cool. It was a good proof of concept, but it was a little rough around the edges. They hadn't quite figured out how to make the Sonic movement work in a three-dimensional space. And then in 2, and certainly in the GameCube version, which is the best way to play it, they had it down pat. You drop into City Escape with that like bass riff just kicking up, and then you're fucking skateboarding down a city, a big ass hill in a city on a helicopter door you're using as a skateboard and kick flipping off of fucking ramps and doing flips and tricks and shit. It perfected the aerial maneuverability of Sonic that they still have not done as well since then, except arguably in Sonic Heroes, which like I wouldn't agree, but some would say that, you know, chaining your homing attacks off of enemies to get altitude, hitting grind rails to blast your way through three-dimensional spaces, the way they play with like gravity and different, like adhering to different surfaces, is amazing. And then they also gave us really distinct play styles for people like Knuckles, where he's hunting for the pieces of the Master Emerald and you have to dig into surfaces to like find the shards. And Tails turning into like a mech level with a targeting laser and different like weapons that you can fire and missiles and shit like that. So fucking interesting and a cool iteration on how each of those three people could have distinct play styles instead of just being Sonic with different colors. Because that's all that Tails and Knuckles really are, other than the fact that Knuckles can climb walls. But they do a really good job in Sonic and Knuckles of gating your ability to just use that to break the level. So you're just Sonic. You're just Sonic with fists. But you're not in Sonic Adventure 2. And then even on the opposite side, with like Rouge especially, you know, she is a treasure hunter. She's a thief. And so using the same mechanics in a very different setting, case in point in the level where you're infiltrating a gun facility and stealing Chaos Emeralds out of their like secure vault. So fucking cool. There's like lasers that you have to maneuver around to avoid being detected, and you have to find the correct vaults, and it's awesome. And having a secret ending where you get like one super huge level where everybody, it's like a baton pass basically, where everybody has distinct objectives they have to achieve in order to be successful. And you're like, okay, now I'm Eggman and I'm using my walker to go through this area to hit this switch to drain this water, because then Knuckles can come through and get the keys that we need to unlock the door for Shadow to go do his little section. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm really excited to see how badly they screw it up next year when Sonic 3 comes out. But I will nonetheless be very happy that some version of this story, and we know it is going to be some version of the story because we know one of the actors is playing Maria Robotnik, who infamously, spoilers for Sonic Adventure 2, fucking dies and traumatizes Shadow. Yeah, I love this game. And Josh, Joey, and I, hours in the Chow Garden trying to breed special chows and doing all the chow racing and chow karate. And you got to have your flying chow to do all the flying levels. And like, you know, the flying chow, when you max it out and you breed it, it looks like knights. And the racing chow, if it's if it is a happy chow, it looks like Sonic. If it's not, it looks like Shadow. You could breed Angel, Devil Chow, Translucent Chow, Jewel Toad Chow. I mean, like, it was an amazingly deep and sometimes frustrating system because of the RNG associated with it. But it's just a blast. And if I'm the only one who wants Sonic on the list, then this is the Sonic game I want on the list.
Hell yeah.
I haven't touched Pokemon Go yet. And I don't know that that's going to stay. I need to check a couple. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. That's not going anywhere. Okay, once I get over a certain point, it's like those are up there for a reason. Do we feel a need for Pikmin 2 to replace Pikmin? I don't have a strong feeling about that. I still haven't played 3 or 4, so maybe that's a 50 episodes from now conversation.
3 and 4 are better games, so
I'll table
wait
that.
till you play those.
I'm going to kill Pokemon Go. I think now that I've fallen off it, it is fully a time and place thing, and I don't think it needs to be here. Very cool time and place thing, but yeah, I don't know. Let's Go is better. Okay, I have two titles I'm kicking around here. And I wonder if there are some thoughts on the group about them. Here are the 2 titles that I'm kicking around to replace Pokemon Go. Dance Dance Revolution Extreme and the Jackbox Party Pack 3. I feel like Jackbox has to be on this list because that has become such a fucking staple at every single trip I take, every gathering I go to. Every time I know I'm going to be in space with people, family, friends, I bring my Switch and I bring my dock so that we can play Jackbox. I think it is the plebeian party game of this generation. And it is Pack 3 specifically has Quiplash 2, which is the most like goated one to me, where people are submitting dueling answers for a single prompt. Everybody votes. It's a total race to the bottom a lot of the time, but it's also what are the inside jokes that have occurred during like this weekend's gathering and how can you work those into your answers? What are like long-standing jokes like fucking swag, throwback all the way to Drawful in one of our first group chat get-togethers of like EJ putting the famous swag man with his little hat and his little jig that he's dancing. And we fucking pissed ourselves laughing, rolling on the floor laughing at that round of Jackbox. And those are the kind of memories that Jackbox can make for you. I don't know if we have any other DDR people here, but that was a formative game for me in my youth in summers in San Jose with my dad of going to Golfland and throwing like $25 at a DDR, breaking a big sweat. Definitely got a date one time in middle school. Somebody I met doing DDR with. She was cute. That's a cool thing. Social event. Everybody's like around the metal pads and like watching like the true goats, like gripping the back bar for dear life and playing on like extreme difficulty. Just like, God, the skill gap in this is just enormous. And it's also good cardio. But I don't know if anybody else gives a fuck about DDR.
Low fucks given for DDR. Jackbox is cool, but I don't really look at it as a video game. So it's hard for me to hold water for that. Like, it is a cool thing that we all get around and do with our Switch. But I mean, I could also pull up YouTube on my Switch, and I don't think I'm going to be putting YouTube in our top 100. So
I don't think
it's
that's
just
analogous.
Low interaction. It would work just as well as a board game. It's just not really a video game in my estimation.
I agree with that. I mean, and to me, the best Jackbox is like Drawful. I mean, it's just Pictionary. Like, the Switch is a convenient way to do it, but yeah, it's not a video game.
Well, if there's no opinions on the matter, then I will substitute Jackbox. Because it's my baby to kill. Like, y'all can dislike it if you want, but I'm not killing your babies for it, so I would like it on this list.
Pokemon Go is much more of a video game than Jackbox is. I would rather have Pokemon Go on the list.
Pokemon Go's my title. I don't want Pokemon Go anymore.
Well, EJ didn't want Crash 2 anymore, but you said no to that.
If you want to flip that and reverse it, I'm cool with that too. I mean, at a certain point, I was just like, I don't think we have consensus on that, so that's a call you can make.
Well, when we first initially offered to make our top 100 in the first place, it wasn't like always everyone has to agree that it can live on the list. But if 2 out of 3 of us says we don't really look at it as a video game, then I have a hard time justifying it like being allowed as a swap. I'm not going to like say no, I'm not going to put my foot down, but like, I don't know. I think that says a little something.
Is Telltale's Walking Dead Season 1 a video game?
Yeah, there's interaction.
There's interaction in Jackbox. You draw prompts. I mean, depending on which one it is, it's very involved.
I don't think Telltale's The Walking Dead would really exist as anything besides what it is. Whereas all of the individual games in Jackbox, which it's also like I don't know, the collection aspect of it, I don't know if I would land on 3 because later iterations I think are better in like most of the games they offer. But I think individually you could play all those as board games and it'd be just as fun. I don't know. I just don't see it like living on our list.
I think of something like TKO or Bracketology, or in the later ones like frickin' I just call it Robot Rap Battle. That's not what it's called. Madverse City. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, Patently Stupid. That's what it's called. Where you are both. You have to both. It involves both drawing. It involves wordplay. It involves a lot of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I guess you could like get out pad and paper and do that if you had prompts and things.
It's just, I have a myriad thoughts on this, obviously. Another thing that there's no definitive one, I guess. Like if you want to have the best of Jackbox, you have to play like 4 different games because they don't all have the ones that are actually good. They kind of mix in the good with the bad because they can't just keep doing Quiplash and you don't know Jack every time. So like I have 7 and 6, I believe, are the ones that I own personally. And then I have a separate download for Drawful.
Yeah, they started doing that as a standalone.
Or 2. I think it's Drawful 2, which is like, what is the difference between Drawful 2 and Drawful 1? Gun in my head, I have no fucking idea. Like it's just the same game, but with quality of life changes.
You could submit your own prompts. There's a couple different play modes in Drawful 2 that Drawful 1 doesn't have.
So not substantive changes. It's just like an update that you could say DLC, or it's just version 1.1.
Well, sure, but isn't Splatoon 2 on this list? And that's literally Splatoon 1 on a different console.
Completely different single player campaign.
Well, I mean,
different console.
EJ, back me up here.
I guess you want to get into the semantics of how you define a video game. We're all on our cell phones, but it's more about interaction together than us interacting with a video game console. I don't know. It feels weird to me. I am mostly biting my tongue because we have yet to talk about Zelda, an actual video game that is going to get more contentious. And we have half an hour to do all of our ranking.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel really weird about this. It's kind of a weird like line to draw since it's not a line we have drawn previously. And it just becomes a definitions debate of like, what is a video game? And like, in what degree of faith are we having that conversation? Like, this is not Monopoly. It is not literally something that exists in the form of a board game. It is something that has always been a video game. And You Don't Know Jack, the trivia game, was a PlayStation 1 title. It's not like it doesn't have any like standing in existence in terms of this is a game that is only ever been played as a game, despite the fact that it is intended to be enjoyed with other people.
I just don't think it hangs in the top 100. Personally.
The conversation about the definition of X, Y, or Z aside, I would also much rather have Pokemon Go on the list because we played a lot of that game. If our criteria is not wanting to get rid of games that we like or feel strongly about, then yeah, I feel much more strongly about Pokemon Go than Jackbox.
I think about Pokemon Go more than I think about Jackbox. But if you want to put DDR was like nuts. I remember playing DDR at your house, Chris.
At my house?
Yeah. Yeah, someone had brought over like the plastic dance pads. It was for like a party that you guys were having. There was like a DDR station and there was Guilty Gear.
Yeah, that was Sean Cullens. Yeah. One of my friends from Park Rose.
Probably wasn't Extreme. I don't remember what iteration it was, but
yeah, I had to Google what version is the one that I grew up playing, because a lot of the contemporary machines, like I don't know the songs from them, and so I have no attachment to them. I was like, okay, which one is like Xenon on, which one is what was it? Parasite. Like there's a bunch of specific songs. I'm like, those are the songs that I know. Well, I really don't like this as a precedent, and I sincerely hope this never happens again, because I think it's bad for what we're trying to do here in terms of having things that are representative of everyone. But in the interest of time, we can put DDR Extreme here.
I don't know what precedent you're talking about. We literally had a conversation about this up front about like, if we're going to suggest a swap, but other people feel attached to the game, then we're not going to swap it.
Right, but y'all don't care about Pokemon Go. You only care about Pokemon Go in conversation with a game that you happen to not think is a video game. That's where I'm like, this is a definitions debate, which is the worst kind of conversation to be having when we're just talking about like things we like that are only playable on a video game console or PC. But like I said, I don't want to take any more time for this. And that's just something to consider in the future. Like, on what grounds are we going to object to people changing their own games out if nobody really cares about the game that's being substituted?
It's not your game, it's our top 100. So we're giving our opinions on this.
Okay, but when we talked about the way we were going to do this, it was y'all can weigh in on if you want to keep that title, not if you do not think this game belongs. There's plenty of games that y'all both have on here that I don't think should be on this list for a number of reasons.
Well, then say something.
Well, I'm going to, but I wanted to not do that up front so that we could have some good feeling. But sure, like, fuck it, let's do it. I don't think The Witcher should be on this list. None of us played this game except for EJ, and he didn't even beat it. He bounced off of it. It feels like it is only on here because we feel like it needs to be on here because it was considered a generational game. I have no attachment to this game whatsoever or interest in coming back to this game. I would just as soon see something else on here that maybe there's some more strong feelings about.
Suggest something would be what I say.
So are we moving into the next part of the conversation, or was that just a retaliatory response?
No, I genuinely wanted to have that conversation. Like, I have that on my list of like games with question marks of like, we should talk about this game. Because it struck me as odd when we did the when we got all the data on things that no one had beaten it. And it's the only game on this list that none of us, and I know it's a long game, but there are other really long games on this list that we have beaten.
I don't know. Have you beaten Morrowind? It's a 400-hour game that I loved my time with. I just didn't beat the final boss because I was doing a million other things. It belongs on this list because it's one of the greatest action RPGs I've played, and I like it a lot.
Should we talk about Zelda? Since we are now in that place mentally.
I don't know if there's any other wonderings. I don't think there are any other on my part other than Witcher and Zelda, but those were the two. Do y'all have any wonderings on any specific things?
No, just like small things that I've played only, so it wouldn't really be, there's no conversation to be had with those. Like, once you play Okami, we can talk about that, Chris, or if you ever get around to playing Unsighted. But like beyond stuff like that, then not really.
Yeah, I would like to get to those. Maybe this can be a shorter conversation than we need to be, than we think it needs to be.
Sure.
Tears of the Kingdom needs to be on this list. I don't particularly think Breath of the Wild needs to stay on the list as a result. I think if it is going to stay, I'm not giving up a game for it. That is my position on the matter.
EJ, what say you?
Yeah, I think it fully supplants the original in every way. Other than, time and place, right? Everything it tries to improve about the first game, it improves. And turns, this world that we had already spent so much time with into a completely different type of game. And I had a lot more fun with it. So yeah, I mean, it seems redundant to have both of those games on here. I'm not opposed to it. I just, that's another part of the conversation. Where would it slot and what do we kick off the list? But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom for sure has to be here.
I do think time and place has merit. Just as a quick aside, that's a big part of many of these games for us is time and place and what that felt like. And the Switch zeitgeist and the group chat and discovering this Hyrule for the first time, all that stuff. I think it has merit, but I just don't like. I would cut any of my other ones to keep BOTW.
Yeah, let's swap them. I'm fine with it. I think Breath of the Wild is still better than 90% of this list anyway, but that's fine. That's for me to believe, not for us to have to share in that feeling. And also, we do not have the precedent that I was worried we might have if EJ really wanted to push for like Pokemon Red and Blue to get on here in addition to Crystal, because I think that one or the other. And same with Zelda, with this iteration of Zelda. I think that's totally fine. Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game. Breath of the Wild is also fantastic, but we've got more love collectively for Tears.
See, there we go. Look at us. And you're right, it is better than...
Easy.
Breath of the Wild is better than a lot of the games on this list, but there are a lot of games not on this list that we have played that, like you just said, are iterative or slightly different, or like Metroid Prime 2 is better than 40 games on this list, for sure.
Nick, which one do you like better in your heart of hearts? If you're just going to say, I want to play one of these games.
Those are two different questions. Just want to point that out right away.
You're right. It's hard to judge a game you played 12 months ago versus a game you played 7 years ago. And you say, oh, which one do I like more? Because those feelings... In 10 years, maybe it's an easier question to answer.
They're completely different games in the way I approach them. Breath of the Wild was a wholly new experience. Tears of the Kingdom was an iteration and improvement. So they cannot be compared as easily. It's a difficult thing to say. Which is a better game, EJ? Pokemon Red or Pokemon Crystal?
Pokemon Crystal's for sure the better
Which do you
game.
like more? Different question, right? So it's tough.
I probably like Pokemon Crystal more.
Which one did you buy a ROM hack just to put color in it? Which one did you speed run obsessively?
Yeah.
You know?
Different
Yeah,
questions,
exactly.
like you said. Well, that's why red and blue are not on
And
this
to
list.
be fair, I think that which game are you going to go play is maybe a moot point. I'm never replaying either of these games. They're too fucking big.
Yeah, pretty
Like,
much.
I have no desire to do that again because the joy of that world to me was conquering it.
Chris, imagine the Switch 2 gets trophy support or some sort of version of that.
No, I'm good.
But what if you could get a golden poop trophy for getting all the Koroks?
I'm not in it for the bleep bloops that pop up when I do stuff. I'm in it because I love it so much that I feel like I want to spend every second. Like some of my favorite movies.
No, I know.
Yeah.
You're a true sicko, but
Yeah,
EJ's a different kind of sicko.
it's intrinsic. Like some of my favorite movies in recent years. I've sat down and sat through the entire end credits and just gone, I don't want it to be over. I don't want to go. And that's how I feel with these like big, huge games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, like Rebirth, that I'm like, I want to do everything because it is worthy of having everything done.
For sure. That's beautiful. I love that. All right. Shall we go through the games that we are adding and subtracting and then find new homes for these new titles that we're adding to our list? A lot of these are full-on lateral swaps that I do not think can reasonably be justified moving up and down. So that should be pretty easy. I think God of War, the God of Wars are lateral. Final Fantasy 7s are lateral. Prime is potentially lateral or maybe moving down because of EJ's input. Risk of Rain 2 might be lateral, might move up. Guitar Hero can be lateral. Mario RPG can be lateral. Luigi's Mansion is full lateral. Sonic is lateral. And Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild is lateral.
Tears of the Kingdom may go higher, but otherwise I agree.
The only thing I really care about is that number one is something that we have all played and beat. I don't know if that's possible without severely compromising the top 10.
It's not impossible.
It might be. It might be. Call of Duty Warzone, top 10.
Hilarious, but it should be higher. We'll get there.
Luigi's Mansion 3, we're fine with staying where it's at 78. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I don't feel strongly about it rising.
Cool. So
How into the weeds we want to get. Luigi's Mansion, like Horizon Zero Dawn's a better video game than Luigi's Mansion 3.
yeah, but I wouldn't have it on our list at all. I was actually thinking about suggesting you giving it a cut for one of your other games, but I thought, he's probably not going to like that. So I didn't.
I liked it better in Breath of the Wild.
Put Wii Sports in for Horizon. Y'all tell me I didn't play this. For a double beaten game, maybe feels a little low.
South Park's good. Is it in our top 50, EJ?
It's not top 50. It's better than at least the 10 games in front of it. Oh, KOTOR 2. I thought KOTOR 2 was going to get the axe after we talked about it last week.
No, I don't. I mean, I didn't have anything else that I would rather cut. Like, I rather would have cut Pokemon Go than KOTOR 2. I thought about it.
South Park 70, 71, like in that range.
Put it at 70 probably. Seems fine. Chris, how do you feel about Hades?
Well, we've all played it. We have all at least escaped. So my personal top 10.
It'll go top 50, I think, pretty easily.
I think that is definitely true. And then it's just a matter of where I think that, I don't know necessarily how I feel about that being the highest rated rogue light, whatever you want to call it.
We haven't talked about Risk of Rain 2 yet, but I think these are going to end up being similar sort of echelons.
Yeah, maybe we could get those sort of, close to each other, get Risk of Rain higher than Hades, but I don't know.
Like I could see Risk of Rain going in the 25-30 range and Hades being in the 30-35 range.
Seems
yeah,
about
we could
right.
get Risk of Rain maybe up at 28, just after Pokemon TCG, which I think we all have very strong feelings about. I definitely
think that
do
is a barrier.
after my replay. So maybe we could get Risk of Rain at 28.
Yeah.
You get Hades, yeah, somewhere in the 30 to 35.
Like maybe right above MVC2.
I'd be okay with that. I have fondness for MVC2, but I haven't played it in, ever.
Yeah, sounds good.
Just a meteoric rise for old Doom.
Okay. What do we have? What do you have next?
Stick of Truth, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Crosscode, and Cuphead for new editions that do not have homes.
RE4 is tough because I feel really, really strongly about it, but y'all haven't played it. So I think that gives it a barrier. I just don't know how high that barrier is. So y'all tell me so that I don't make an opening offer that causes friction.
Well, for example, something that I played and really liked, it's like Monster Hunter World. I've got Bloodborne super high. I mean, it's really all over the place as far as single person playing. Maybe others have partaken more with other titles, but Resident Evil 4 is not a game that I'm like leery of playing and not liking. Like I feel like I'm gonna like it, but maybe the degree of which I like it will be different than you. But I'm not really strongly opposed to you kind of having some control over where you think it goes. I mean, we've recorded a lot of hours of us talking about these games, so where do you think it belongs? And then we'll kind of talk about it from there. Currently, it's replacing an 88 in our top 100.
Okay, let me just go to places I know. I know it can't go higher than Wind Waker, so let me go lower than that and look.
Does it break top 50?
It definitely, I think, maybe in the 50 range. It's just tough. Yeah, y'all haven't played it. I don't know, 40, 48. I don't see anything below that I haven't already asterisked as something that I think could go higher that would be egregious that it sits in front of.
Works for me.
Above Battlefront 2. EJ, you just got that platinum. Did you plat 2 or just 1?
So the whole shebang.
Shebang.
Yeah, Battlefront 2 could move down quite a lot.
Okay, I'm going to asterisk that for...
It's one of those things where I'm like, I know that I love this game as a kid. I know I played it a ton. I know we would do kill races and we would do hero battles and just fuck each other up. And it was a lot of fun, but like, I'm 32,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's on the list, but going back and playing it, especially grinding out the trophy was...
You know what? I'm kind of surprised I didn't hear from you today, EJ, besides a brief mention in passing, was Nightfire / Agent Under Fire. Those just don't just crack. They don't hang.
Nightfire is really fucking good. The single player campaign is good. If you actually change the controls to feel like a modern shooter, it holds up surprisingly well. And we just played so much of that multiplayer. But I feel like trying to put on any 007 game invites the GoldenEye conversation, and it just feels like that does not need to be.
Nobody here really. I don't think anyone here really cares about GoldenEye.
Fucking hate that game.
Hard to play now. Impossible, I dare say. All right, other new ones. We slotted South Park. Did we? Yeah, except
We haven't homed it yet. That's just the replacement.
72, too high, too low.
I think it can go higher. I think it could clear like Star Fox. Maybe sit right below Dead Cells.
Yeah, that's up there. I mean, it feels fine where it is now.
You're happy with it being
anywhere between 70 and 50-ish is fine.
Yeah, it's the home of good games that it's like hard to really, I don't know, make a justification. It's hard to fight about, Every game on this list could be in the top 50.
Turns out they're all great.
It is the top 100.
Chris, what are we thinking for Crosscode?
I definitely like it a lot more than Dead Cells.
How do you like it compared to the time you've spent so far with Hyperlight Drifter?
I would put Hyperlight higher, but I asterisk Hyperlight. Hyperlight's not staying at 54. I would definitely have Hyperlight in front of Crosscode, wherever Crosscode lands.
It's just that once you get past like 40, even like in the 50s, you get a lot of like beating heart, live and die for this kind of game. And it's tough for me to put Hyperlight or Crosscode that high. Like I really like both those games. They're both important games, but they're not in my top 10. So it's like, how do I rank those amongst these other games that maybe I didn't play or didn't offer to be on the list? So like Hyperlight at 54, I don't know how much higher it could really reasonably go.
It has the benefit of, well, I haven't beaten it, but I'm gonna beat it. And Crosscode, we've both beaten. but I don't want it to become a matter of two of us really like it and one doesn't, because that's not fun.
Yeah, it's not like a majority rules kind of thing. It's kind of just feeling it out.
Well, if you don't want to move Hyperlight, then Crosscode, I think, is going to be somewhere in the low 50s, like maybe 57. I wouldn't put it over Kirby. I certainly wouldn't put it over Rebirth.
Yeah, that works for me. And then did you still want to move Sonic Adventure as well, or?
Yeah, I would put that quite a bit lower. I'd put that at like 80. I think that is, I like it a lot, but I don't think it has the bona fides that Sonic 2 does. So I wouldn't advocate for it to be that high.
How about 87?
That's very specific. Sure.
Right above Fez.
Yeah, all right.
I'm just saying, for the things that I've put on there, like I like Fez a lot, and it's like just me.
Sure.
So-
Yeah. I like that as a precedent.
So EJ 72. Obviously, Tony Hawk has to move to eventually be at 69 again.
Amen.
But South Park, is that above or below the Tony Hawk threshold? You put a lot of time into Tony Hawk 1 and 2, and we could just do a swap for this to be 1 and 2. Like I'm totally fine with that. It's like the HD remake of that, since you did pour so much time into it very recently. I know you didn't bring it up yourself, but like we did talk about that last week.
I thought it was. We should.
Yeah, we thought, oh, that's cheating.
Who cares? It's our list. 1 and 2. Cut it. Send it to print.
Because then it's like, well, the Spyro collection, right?
I think this is like narrow enough and singular enough. Like once it breaks into a trilogy, it's a little bit different, you know? 2 games. That's 2/3 of a trilogy.
Are we going to put the Final Fantasy Pixel collection at number 1 because it has like 2 of the greatest JRPGs of all time on it? Like, no, that would be totally
And
silly.
4 of the most forgettable.
5 never got its due because it never really got properly
That's one of
localized.
the top 2.
Where do you? Oh boy, now you're getting
4
into
and
some
5.
Final Fantasy 4. Okay, God damn it! Very good. 4 is great.
Anyway, I forgot. EJ, South Park?
South Park's fine here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably like it more than everything before it, maybe, except for Warzone.
Yeah, where's Warzone going, EJ?
I like it better than anything up until probably number 9.
So
But-
where is it realistically going, EJ?
It probably belongs somewhere near Rocket League as far as that ilk. But again, none of you have played it. So it doesn't matter to me if it's 70 or 100. Like it doesn't matter. Like leave it at 100. It's a good meme.
How do you feel about it being 1 above Pokemon TCG? Right below Bloodborne.
That's pretty high on this list. Chris is making a face.
Hey, I got Bloodborne up there. It could happen to you too, buddy.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
You did get
I'm wheeling
Bloodborne
and
up
dealing.
there. How the fuck did you get Bloodborne at 26 when that is a game that we loathe? Let's just do a 1-for-1 swap, and Bloodborne goes to 100, and Warzone gets Bloodborne spot. That's a joke. For legal purposes, that's a joke.
Infinite World deserves 100. It's too high.
Yeah, it's going to be 100.
Which is the best Budokai game?
Without playing any of them, I'd say probably 2 or 3 because that's the way video games worked on the PS2.
I don't know those games enough to get in the weeds on that, but I will say that I think Warzone feels right in the 30s at the most, because it just is something that we have no connection to whatsoever. Like Nick could at least go, well, y'all tried Bloodborne. He could at least point to that to go. And I do think that should also go in the 30s now that you pointed out that now that you like called attention to the fact that it's that high. I was like, maybe that could come down just a little bit, but that's where I think we could put Warzone.
I want to leave Warzone at 100.
That's
Just for the bit. EJR anchor. Chris and EJ, what do we do with Cuphead? Both of you play this game a lot more than I have.
Did you beat Cuphead?
No.
EJ, you didn't
I
beat
didn't.
it?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Nick, how much did you put into this game?
Like, I think I got hands on sticks once. I do not think I played more than a level.
How about 77?
That's cool.
Sure.
I think Lego Star Wars can go a little higher. that is a game that I played and enjoyed quite a lot.
From like 94 to 90? Like, what are you talking about here?
Well, yeah, maybe like 80, 89. Just get it out of the 90s a little bit. Give some recognition that this is a game.
Wow,
that,
supplanting Pokemon Conquest. That seems personal.
But we both play. I mean, do you not like that as much as Pokemon Conquest? Like, you felt pretty spurned at that placement previously.
Well, originally you were trying to put Plock over it, and Plock was just raising all the red flags, but then we compromised and Plock went lower, and now Plock's gone, so it's a moot point.
If you're cool with it, we don't have to move it, but I wanted to offer. Where are you thinking for Three Houses?
That could easily be top 50.
Great, pick a spot. I'm just scrolling up and looking at like what in order of asterisks going up from the bottom.
Put it at 49 and move Star Wars Battlefront down to like 60-ish.
How about right below Titanfall 2?
DDR.
That can go all the way to the 90s. I don't even care.
1990s.
Well, no, actually, I do care. Definitely under Trauma Center, which I'm not going to pick that fight, but DDR under
Better than
Trauma.
Minesweeper. Confirmed.
Speaking of things that you could play as a board game,
It'd be really difficult, but it could happen.
I would be perfectly happy with DDR being 98. I will not put it under Infinite World. And we know that Warzone is a meme, so we know that the bottom two are not just EJ games. He made that choice. Warzone should be higher.
Yo, Ease 8 stock is rising. Let's go.
Ease 97.
Goated.
literal goat.
Man, I feel weird now that Pokemon Go is gone. I feel weird about it. Maybe that's just because I was waxing nostalgic after hearing that it's about to be 10 years old, because that's fucked up.
In 50 episodes, we're not even going to remember it used to be there.
Yeah, because of the Alzheimer's taking us moment by moment.
I want to offer for Pokemon Snap to move down a little bit.
Sure.
Works for me.
Very valid.
I mean, it's probably worse than all of the games until you get to like NBA 2K12, honestly. A fun game, a short game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to suggest going that low, especially because we have all played this game and beaten it, which is rare for this list. Actually, maybe
this game is 3 hours long.
Still, I don't know, Spyro 2. It's like a 20-hour game, maybe. I still haven't beaten it. Maybe I don't think Pokemon Snap should move. So I'm like, where would I put it? So it's something that, again, we all played, and I want to honor that. Oh, maybe 72. Move it a little bit, but not substantively. Yeah, but just a little. It's a principle, because like being in the 70s feels more right than being even like low 60s. It just feels right. And look at that. Tony Hawk's back at 69.
It was meant to be. All right, what else do you have marked for reevaluation? Are we finally to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
I have Witcher 3 starred because I think if again, like, it's on the list, cool. Like, everybody else's engagement has been so low. I don't know. Where does this sit for you, EJ, in terms of like, is this up in the tier of things like getting up towards like the Fire Emblem or Resident Evil remake, Halo 2 Rocket League, some of these, like, we really like them, but maybe not everyone played them titles. Is it on par with those? Like, where?
No, it's in the Horizon realm.
Final Fantasy 12.
Where is Horizon?
Horizon is 80 something. Yeah, 83. Which could also go higher if you wanted it to, EJ. Like, it's all on. I got Elden Ring to 12. It could happen to you too if you're just stubborn enough.
I'm just looking at it relative to the surrounding games. I'm like, yeah, I like Horizon better than the first 20 games on this list, probably.
To remind you, Battlefront 2 is at 63.
Yes, it is.
For context.
It could go further down.
Well, okay.
By proxy, that will then move everything else up. So.
It could go further down, or rather than ranking based on things we like less, rank on things you like more. Like, it doesn't have to be Horizon. It doesn't have to be Witcher 3. Just is there an experience that was a primarily EJ experience that you're like, this game is good enough, it ought to be a little higher up? I don't know if it's Witcher. I just opened the can of worms with Witcher because I'm like, for my money, that can go lower because of the lack of engagement from the others. But maybe your engagement with it was impactful enough that it actually should go the other direction. I don't know, but I can't make that choice.
Is there a game that could even be in contention for number one that is a shared experience? Also,
Oh boy.
Mega Man X being top 5 could probably change. Like, Tears of the Kingdom could probably go top 5.
It could. We're also not done looking at the stuff we want to reorder. If we could finish that first for my own Type A organization, I would certainly appreciate it.
Spider-Man 2018.
Spider-Man needs to be higher. That is not only a shared game, but it's one that EJ has literally played 5 times, which is fucking unheard of. And I enjoyed a lot. This is a top 25 game.
Right below X4, 24, above 3D World.
Could definitely go above Let's Go.
24 or 25. Yeah, I would support that.
EJ, do you want it above Mega Man X4?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like Spider-Man more than Mega Man. That's for sure.
Which of the mans is your favorite?
Fleshman.
Mega Man? Spider-Man?
To be honest, Spider-Man does sound like could be a boss in a Mega Man game.
Web Spider.
Mega Man X4.
It's all connected. Like a web.
And you wanna talk about Mega Man X, which we certainly can do. I notice EJ's never beaten it.
To be fair, the boss rush at the end, you can get to that and be like, yeah, well, that's enough.
It's integrated into the level design at least, which is the only time they ever did that. I have no idea why they moved away from that as a design aesthetic, because it worked so much better than here's a room with 8 fucking teleporters. Anyway, I digress. Shovel Knight. Oh, that game's so
How
fucking
much higher can
good.
it realistically go?
I don't know.
Animal Crossing New Horizons should be above Assassin's Creed Black Flag, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like a random thing.
Let's get that in at 41 then, or do you want to go higher?
I had a lot of nostalgia for this game lately.
It's a great fucking game. We all engage with it to a degree that we rarely all engage with a video game.
Number 1?
No. It's a great game.
All the eyes go to the ceiling.
Top 20,
Now
potentially.
step on the break. Definitely a potential top 20. What are we going to elbow? Actually, you know what? None of you have beaten Chrono Trigger. We can move Chrono Trigger out of the top 20 completely. It is better than most of the games that will be supplanting it, but you haven't beat it. Like I can't justify it being there.
Put Elden Ring right below it. That's fine.
Do you want to do that like 2021 or 2122?
Yeah.
Great.
Easy. Make some room.
I am now looking by games we have all played to see if that should float anything up.
Animal Crossing can go. We'll put that in the 20 range right now. Just to hold it.
I support this.
I think Shovel Knight's going to go in that range as well.
Yeah, God.
Likely.
We've all played and we've all beaten, so I think maybe we need to be having a conversation about how high Shovel Knight goes, not if it goes higher.
I think it goes above Dread.
I was just about to say.
I don't know if it clears DKC2 though.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I think 14 feels right.
And then I have no idea how to rank Mario Kart and Animal Crossing.
I would take Kart.
I agree, and I also wonder if we're undervaluing Mario Kart because it's Mario Kart and not actually considering how fucking astonishingly good this game is. Because when we were talking about it pretty recently, I feel like I was sort of it. That's why I flagged it so quick when we were reordering. I was like, this maybe is a top 10 game.
Yeah, probably last week when EJ was talking about it in his.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's
Top
exactly it. Yeah, I was like, fuck, yeah, this game is incredible.
Same with Animal Crossing.
Yeah, damn, okay. If we were to do that, we should move Final Fantasy VI to 11 or 12.
Yeah, I think Final Fantasy VI and Mega Man X. Maybe Mega Man X a little bit less so. I think X can still maybe crack the top 10, but I don't know if it still is hanging top 5.
It may not be top 5, but I am gonna hold top 10 just because it does have mutuals in a way that Final Fantasy VI doesn't. So if we drop Final Fantasy to 12, and move Mario Kart like right to 10.
That feels right.
Wherefore Animal Crossing.
20 feels fine.
Okay.
Hades could probably get bumped up to that Elden Ring Spider-Man area.
But Risk of Rain 2, EJ?
Where's Risk of Rain right now?
30.
I don't like it more than Risk of Rain.
Maybe 31 then. It's not really that big a move. Yeah, I don't know. Well, if you're not going to move it over Risk of Rain, then I don't think it needs to be moved at all. Tears of the Kingdom probably no. Tears of the Kingdom should go top 5. Maybe it can just. What about Tears of the Kingdom? I don't know if it'll stay here, but 4. Mario Kart goes to 9. Mega Man X goes to 10.
Okay, hear me out. I think I probably talked shit about Pokemon Go last year. But for like the defining shared experience of our adulthood, at least prior to COVID, the defining fun shared experience of our adulthood, it feels weird that it's not on the list, just as part of the cross section that is our lives as people who play games. And I know it's like done and over with, and we didn't play it certainly to the extent that Chris did. I didn't even scratch the surface.
Few games will we play the way that Chris does.
That's also fair. Man, should it be on the list one way or the other? I'm not saying that DDR would have to be the swap. Does it feel like an important?
I can think of a couple games, EJ.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can.
I cut it for a reason. If you would like it back, that is incumbent on you. I don't have anything else I want to cut. I would support its inclusion, but not over any of the other things that I have on the board.
How many games do we end up actually swapping out? 14. The under, but just barely.
We're at 15.
Are we?
Yes.
Yeah, because we did Tony Hawk.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't include that. In
Tony Hawk would make 16.
What else did we? DDR?
I mean, I could do the whole list now if you want.
Whew. It's a lot of games. So speaking of redundancy, you still feel good about having both KOTOR games on this list?
I do. I think they're distinctly different experiences. I think that in the same way that the dialogically driven experience in a Star Wars world that KOTOR was, that was not like anything we'd really seen before, in the same way that was sort of genre breaking and kind of broke open what a lot of Western RPGs considered as like their guiding ethos for how they tell their stories. KOTOR 2's affinity system with the party members, the fact that it was telling a more mature and nuanced Star Wars story that I still haven't seen anything like other than The Last Jedi. The fact that it generally is more meaningful in terms of the way you interact with the party at large. The stories are more like, it's not like you're either supporting, Jesus Christ or Satan when you go to a planet. Like, there are shades of gray. Like, I think of Ondor in KOTOR 2, you can side with the queen, whose administration is having a lot of problems in the way that she is running the country and is not doing like the best economic job, or you can depose her with a fucking fascist who is going to probably do a better job of governing, but is going to do so in a way that could be oppressive towards people. It's not really as cut and dry as like you're siding with the good guy or you're siding with the bad guy. Like, it's going to feel a little bad no matter what you do.
Obsidian loves those gray areas.
Yeah, and they got to dig into it there in a way that's just fascinating. And again, it's as much as KOTOR is like the best, to me, straight ahead Star Wars story they've ever told, I think KOTOR's story is better and more interesting, and still has had conversations about like the nature of the Force and what it is to be a Jedi and a Sith and to be a Force user more broadly, that are still goddamn interesting and rich conversations. We're never going to get those kinds of conversations again. Like, Disney is not interested in telling those kinds of stories. We're going to get straight ahead Star Wars stories forever. If you want to move it lower, we can move it lower, but I don't want to cut it. It's already pretty low. 73.
Nope.
Let's just get happy with our top 10 and then call it.
Sure. I was just going to offer, if you want to cut Nomansky for Pokemon Go, that's fine, but I want Pokemon Go to be in the 90s if we do that. I don't know. Yeah, the social thing was cool, but And that was for me, who was advocating for that as being the defining inclusive factor of Pokemon Go, since it is.
How about this, EJ? Offered directly from my mouth to your heart, hard swap Minesweeper for Pokemon Go.
Nah. Minesweeper fucks, dude. Come on. Come on. I played a lot of Minesweeper in my day.
Damn. I thought that was going to be like a slam dunk switcheroo there.
From your office days. Then just switch it for No Man's Sky.
I have no opposition for that. EJ, what say you?
Sure.
And then what, move that to the 90s, you said?
It doesn't have to go that far, but yeah, I mean, I think it should be the lowest rated Pokemon game, so 89.
Right above Super Warriors.
Honestly, just do the trifecta. Put Super Warriors next to Infinite World next to Warzone. You have no arguments for me.
You are our anchor, but I mean, let's look at the other games you have down in the 90s. Is Super Warriors better than Crash 2?
No.
Better than 2K12? Better than Lego Star Wars?
Okay, are we talking strictly quality of game?
Your heart, in your heart, is it better in your mind and your childlike heart that ranks these games arbitrarily, such as we have been doing for the past 3 hours?
No, it's important enough to make the list. I don't feel strongly enough to put it over anything but Infinite World.
Perfect. We'll just do it. All right, let's stop muddling around in the 80s and 90s and let's talk about the top 10. What's number 1?
Oh, God. If we want to prioritize something that we all played and beat,
it would have to be Melee or Tears of the Kingdom. And
well, I was going to say, like, it would probably have to be one of those. Like, yes, we've all done Pokemon Crystal and Mario World. I feel weird about that.
Right.
And I also feel weird about Melee because you don't really beat Melee anyway. Like, we all played it and enjoyed it and had a high degree of engagement with it. We had I had all the trophies, so I guess that means it was like I beat Melee.
Did you beat all the challenges?
Yeah, with every
We
character.
beat Melee. We did it, guys.
We did it.
Oh, man.
No, I don't know. It was just a thought. I don't want to, like I said, compromise the integrity by putting something. It's like, oh yeah, Melee could go at number 1, but I'm like, I like Melee more than Pokemon Crystal, and obviously you guys don't like Melee more than Hollow Knight.
I could definitely see Tears even a slot higher or even 2 slots higher, just because that game is unimpeachably amazing and we all played it to completion with a high degree of engagement and enjoyment. We even got an 89 out of EJ, highest rating he's given anything on this podcast since we started doing numbers.
It does indeed fuck. I'll say the unsaid.
Mega Man X still top 10.
Yeah, I don't want it to fall out.
It's hanging in there. Is The Last of Us better than Mega Man X? No. Come on, please no.
Please no. Like, I would take Shovel Knight over Mega Man X.
Well, maybe there's a conversation for Shovel Knight to tunnel its way all the way to the top 5.
Top 5 seems a little kooky. I can see that at 10. I can see that at 10.
We've all played it to completion. We all love it.
Kooky.
We all think the expansions are fantastic.
Except for Plague Knight.
Except for Plague Knight. Is
Quite
it,
mid.
I mean, is it Mario Kart? Like, is it literally just the game that is excellent at everything that it does ever? And it's like, it's the same thing as Melee. It's like, are we really going to put a fighting game at number 1? Are we really going to put a racing game at number 1? Like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit.
You are correct. That is true.
Here's how we're going to
It
revisit.
doesn't have our heart. It has our minds, but it doesn't have our hearts.
Yeah. Here's how we're gonna do this next time. And this is an idea, a suggestion that Nate had. And we're not doing that this time because we're already sort of set on what we're going to do. One of his film podcasts, they are doing top 100 films of all time based on the 3 co-hosts. The way that they did it is that they each individually ranked 1 through 100 their top 100 films of all time. And each spot was worth a certain number of points, and the producer put their 3 lists in an algorithm, and the list that it generated was their top 100 list, which meant that if you had a game that was only on your list in the 90s, it's not making the list. But if you have a game that is number 1 for you, it's going to be on the list somewhere. So that could be a way to take all of the guesswork out of it and just go, here's each of our 100 games. Let's mix it up and see what happens. If for nothing else but a thought exercise. Food for thought.
Yeah. I don't hate that. I also like the idea of just taking the pool and then doing a fantasy draft to keep in line with what we do on this podcast. Like, all right, we're going to draft the top 100 and that's going to be the order. And we could snake style and then just draft them and see what happens. If anything, it'd be funny and it would be less bickering over truly inane bullshit. Like, Super Metroid worse than Titanfall 2? Is it worse than Witcher 3?
It'd be great, but then it would be arguing at the beginning and then an hour of us deciding what's in the middle and then losing interest more and more as we go on. As opposed to now, which is arguing throughout the entire part and losing interest gradually, regardless.
I thought we did a good job of saving our arguing. No one had to take a break. I think that's a good sign. Are we overthinking Pokemon Crystal? I mean, is the obvious choice the right one? I mean, like,
Pokemon Crystal's not the... Nah.
It doesn't feel like number one worthy. I don't even know if it really feels top 10 or top 5 worthy. Maybe top 10, but maybe not top 5.
Like, I could swap Crystal and Mario Kart for sure. I like Crystal being in the top 10.
we could do that.
I like Mario Kart and Melee. I mean, it's just, they're important to us. Evergreen as hell. Like,
and they do float up, like EJ's talked about many times, as far as being multiplayer experiences and having those like slumber party memories, very formative to our youths. Mario Kart 8 a little bit less so because it is, a more recent game than that, but still kind of evocative of those memories. When you're playing Mario Kart 8, you're also remembering how much fun you had playing Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart 64 and all that. It's hard to separate that.
Next time we all get together, whenever it may be, instead of playing Kong Skull Island,
What?
maybe I'll put Hollow Knight in and I'll have y'all to guide me.
Dude,
Got to do it.
that game's so good.
What I'm hearing is Mario Kart 2, Melee 3.
Compromise
Just
it.
be boring and put Tears of the Kingdom or Mario World at number 1? Are those the two that we're deciding between?
I don't know that I'm throwing Hollow Knight out. I haven't heard a persuasive argument for it to be displaced yet.
I understand the reasoning as far as it being only game, like you and I have played it and love it, and to be a better representation of our group taste, it might behoove us to put a game on that we've all played. And I think completed is a little bit over. There's too much emphasis on completion. I don't think you needed to complete a game to have an opinion on it or to love it. So, but EJ has experienced very little of it, so it's, I don't know, not through, it's a genre that he regularly does not vibe with, so it's understandable that he would not have played much of it, but also it doesn't represent all of us as game players to have it as a number 1, so that's understandable too.
If we're looking for a compromise pick, something that is outstanding and that we all have at least spent a good amount of time with and recognize as being unimpeachably excellent and worthy of number 1, and also something that I would still want to play, because I'm looking at Mario World and I'm like, yeah, it's generational. It's like indisputably one of the greatest and most important games ever. I'm never going to play that game again. I've already played it enough times. I never have a desire to go back to Mario World. So that's tough for me. I do, however, have a regular desire to go back to Donkey Kong Country 2. If we're looking for a compromise pick, we have all played that game. EJ, I thought you beat this game when we did the podcast talking about this trilogy, but perhaps I'm remembering incorrectly.
It could either stay the same and then we can nitpick the next few, or we can compromise the number 1 with something like a Mario Kart. I don't know if I would want to put Tears of the Kingdom at number 1. The group thing makes sense. It's like, yeah, there are better games on this list, but are there games that we've had better times with, both together and with other friends? Probably not. And that seems reasonable. It'd be funny if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was our number 1 game of all time. It'd be pretty funny. Maybe there is no happy compromise, huh?
Maybe not. Maybe this is where it sits. If there's no compromise candidate, then I don't know what else we would do. Like something outside the box that's like, oh yeah, we all really like that. That could be a number 1. but I don't know what that would be. And like y'all kind of dismiss Shovel Knight out of hand. So I thought that might be a potential. DKC2, I know that I feel like Nick would support that at least in principle. I don't think it's better, but it could be more emblematic of, I don't know, what we're trying to do. But I don't even necessarily know what that is. We're kind of just doing the thing.
Right. Yeah, there's no rubric. There's no there's no measuring stick that we're putting all these games up against and collectively mathing it out. So it's like, I don't know, DKC2 it sits pretty high in my top 10. Obviously, talked about that last week as well. Like, I'm fine with it being number 1. That's cool with me, but it has to be all of us kind of agreeing. I think that would be a better representation of all of us. And obviously we can't all, unanimously agree. We have such disparate tastes and memories with these games. So it will have to be a compromise, I think. And I'm totally fine with that. Like, Mario Kart 8 is a fantastic game. I don't hate that being number 1. Same with Smash Bros. It doesn't represent us collectively as the style of game that we play, but I mean, it just is, it surpasses the genre boundaries that they may like sort of fall into based on like what kind of games they are, but it's just, they are so fantastic as to draw everyone into them. It's like a black hole of joy.
I mean, we're going to revisit this in 50 episodes. Nothing is final. I am disappointed I have to go buy a copy of DDR Extreme now.
If it's not on Switch, I don't have to get it.
Don't
I have
buy
to have them all.
a copy of DDR Extreme. I mean, you could probably get a home copy for like $3 on the PS2. If you're really committing to it, though, you'd buy the arcade cabinet. Then I would definitely live in your office for the summer. You just hear me like pop, 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 every morning.
Then he would get up to play Dance Dance Revolution,
Exactly.
I am fully surprised, though, that you did not put Celeste on this list, Chris. Very strange.
I didn't have support from y'all, and I like it a lot. A part of the appeal for that was that it could have been a compromise pick. Compromise pick is wrong. Something that has more mutual love as something that could make the list that we're all like, yeah, that's a good game. But when EJ became lukewarm, I was like, oh no, I don't want to.
It wasn't even that I was lukewarm in the game. I just I didn't feel strong enough about it because I didn't get deep enough on a replay to like replace one of my games. Coming in with the criteria we did, it's like, I have 30 games on this list. Does Celeste supplant one of them? That's a tough call.
All right.
You obviously had a lot. I mean, you swapped 10, 11. How many games out? You had a much easier time killing your babies than
10. But 4 of them were version swaps. So,
and one of them I suggested.
yeah, I wasn't even counting crosscode. All right, gun to our heads. Are we changing the number 1? And if so, what is it?
I'm fine keeping it because it means I win the top 100 again. That's really important to me. But I'm not opposed to changing it if there's like a reasonable, agreement upon it. Like, is it weird that we all think that we love Mario Kart and and Pokemon Crystal and Smash Bros. Melee, but none of them are like number 1 enough?
It is weird, but that also seems right?
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense.
Like, they're all bench warmers for number 1.
Yeah.
They're the opening lineup. They're not the headliner.
And to be fair, if I were making my own list right now, I don't know what I would put number 1.
Well, we know that.
So in that sense, maybe my opinion is moot because I don't even know what mine would be.
Well, maybe we need to switch number 1 and number 2.
Call of Duty Warzone might be my number 1. All right. that might just float up to the top. Hours played?
Number
definitely.
100.
Yeah. That's the highest number. That's the best, right?
It's got the most points.
Yeah, 100%.
Unimpeachable.
Crimson tier or whatever.
Iridescent.
Are we gonna read through 20 at a time for our listeners?
We did it last time. I feel like we should probably do it this time.
100 games, a lot of games.
Okay. 100 to 90 in order from the bottom. Call of Duty Warzone, Dragon Ball Z Infinite World, Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Warriors, Dance Dance Revolution Extreme, Ease 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, Minesweeper, Kirby Air Ride, Trauma Center, Under the Knife, Lego Star Wars Complete Saga, NBA 2K12, and Crash 2. 89 to 80, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Conquest, Fez, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Age of Empires 2, SSX, Tricky Horizon Zero Dawn, NBA Street Volume 2, and Luigi's Mansion 3. 79 to 70. Nier Automata, WarioWare Touched, Mass Effect 3, Assassin's Creed 2, Cuphead, Monster Hunter World, Super Mario Land 2, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, Pokemon Snap, and South Park Stick of Truth. At 69, as is right and proper,
Nice.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2. Yeah, can I get a nice in chat? Thank you. Castle Crashers, Destiny, Pikmin, The Witcher 3, Splatoon 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Titanfall 2, BioShock, and Super Metroid. 59 to 50. Tetris, Banjo-Kazooie, Crosscode, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hyper Light Drifter, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mother 3, Fire Emblem, Three Houses, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. 49, Star Fox 64, Dead Cells, GTA 5, Super Meat Boy, Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1, Rocket League, Halo 2, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and Final Fantasy 12. 39, Guitar Hero 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Hades, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Maker 2, The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker HD, God of War 2018, Super Mario RPG Remake, and Risk of Rain 2. 29, Pokemon TCG, Bloodborne, Pokemon Let's Go, Super Mario 3D World, Mega Man X4, Spider-Man 2018, Portal, Elden Ring, Chrono Trigger, and Animal Crossing New Horizons. Into the top 20 at 19, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Zelda Link's Awakening, Mario Odyssey, Metroid Dread, Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, Donkey Kong Country 2, Fire Emblem Awakening, Final Fantasy VI, and The Last of Us. The top 10 Console Crusade video games of all time. Mega Man X, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Metroid Prime HD Remaster, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario World, Pokemon Crystal, and at number 1, Hollow Knight. That is the Console Crusade Top 100.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 8 is funny. I like that.
Oh, shit. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Kinda supplants the Final Fantasy 6 at 6 that it was last time.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Mega Man X, I mean, it's not 10, but X is 10.
I always thought it was when I was a child. I was like, oh, it's the 10th. Roman numerals.
It almost was, like, numerically. Anyway, that's really funny. Thousand Year Door, man, that could be a mover in 50 episodes, depending on what this remake reminds us of, how much we love this game. That'll be a very interesting conversation to be had. Fellas, how do you feel about this list?
I like it. I think it's even better than the last list.
And I agree.
I'm trying to see if there's anything I spent money on for collection's sake that is no longer in the top 100.
Yeah, I know. I've got to sell my copy of No Man's Sky now. Jesus.
No Man's Ski.
It's just gonna have to go on the honorable mentions list now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they are alumni of our top 100 list. They've fallen off for the great beyond.
Alumni. That's really funny.
They're the top 200 now.
I'm quite glad I don't have to buy Prime Trilogy. I'm glad I already own the Metroid game on the list.
Ooh, yeah, that's expensive too.
All in
GameStop
all,
exclusive. Thanks, Nintendo.
we replaced 16 games, and y'all each did 2. We collectively agreed on 2, and I did the other 10.
You want to read just what was swapped, just as a refresher? Just what changed?
Yeah, totally. We collectively removed Breath of the Wild for Tears of the Kingdom. We switched Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for the 1 and 2 remakes. Lumines was removed in favor of Crosscode, and Rogue Legacy was removed for Risk of Rain. We did some version swaps with Mario RPG and Metroid Prime remake. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came in for Final Fantasy VII Remake. God of War 18 came in for Ragnarok. Plock died so that Cuphead could run. Doom died so that Hades could be on fire. Jet Set Radio Future was switched for Resident Evil 4 Remake. Luigi's Mansion 1 for Luigi's Mansion 3. Sort of like better version swap there. Sonic 2 for Sonic Adventure 2 and No Man's Sky for DDR Extreme. EJ switched Guitar Hero 2 for 3 and Wii Sports for South Park Stick of Truth.
Wow. That is a lot. I'm surprised Wii Sports didn't squeak its way back onto the list, but
There's always next year, son.
Yeah, we'll see if it rises back up.
well, next week, look forward to the league recap. A lot of movement the last couple weeks. Interesting little turn of events.
That'd be nice. I haven't been into the weeds on Fantasy Critic in a little bit, so it'll be revitalize my focus, my scope.
Yeah.
It's now past 3. Our boy EJ has stuff to do. His heart out was an hour ago.
That hard got soft really fast, which, we've all been there.